Tonight you're about to discover a timeless secret that Buddhist monks have used for centuries to calm the mind and enter deep, restful sleep. I'll be sharing 10 powerful Zen stories, each one a quiet doorway into peace. These stories have helped countless people silence their racing thoughts and drift into the most tranquil slumber. Hidden within each tale is a gentle key that unlocks your mind's natural ability to release stress, anxiety, and tension. What makes this journey so special is that it works for everyone, even if you've never meditated, even if your thoughts won't slow down, even if nothing else has helped. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." And over the next few hours, you'll come to understand exactly what he meant and how to apply that wisdom in your own life. As we explore stories of empty boats, wise monks, and unexpected insights, you may begin to feel something shift. The weight on your chest will lift, your thoughts will quiet, your body will soften, and without effort, you'll begin to float into deep relaxation. So, make yourself comfortable, fluff your pillow, let your body melt into the mattress. Take a deep, gentle breath in with me now. And as you breathe out, know this: you are beginning a journey that was always meant for you. Our first story, The Empty Boat. Let's begin beside a peaceful river, where a lesson in how we respond to life patiently waits. There once was a man who loved rowing on still water. He cherished those quiet evenings, gliding beneath the fading sun as it painted the sky in gold. One night, as he rowed in peaceful solitude, he noticed another boat drifting toward him. Calmly, he called out, "Watch out!" But the boat kept coming. Frustrated, he shouted, "Turn away! You're going to hit me." Still, the boat drifted on. His calm dissolved into anger. He braced for impact, ready to scold the reckless person inside. But when the boats finally bumped, he looked more closely and realized the boat was empty. It had no driver. No one had ignored him. The boat was simply moving with the current. In that instant, his anger vanished. He felt foolish for yelling at no one at all. What had changed? Not the collision. The boats still bumped. But his perception had shifted. There was no longer anyone to blame, no intention, no target for his frustration. And so, the anger dissolved. The Buddha taught, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." This truth is beautifully revealed in the story of the empty boat. So often our stress, resentment, and irritation don't arise from events themselves, but from the meanings we attach to them, the stories we invent about others' intentions. In Zen Buddhism, this reactivity stems from the ego, our sense of a separate self that constantly seeks protection, validation, and control. When someone cuts us off in traffic, we don't just see a car moving, we see an insult. How dare they treat me like that? Our ego builds a story where we are the center, and others become allies or enemies. But how many times in your life have you encountered empty boats, where you assumed harm or disrespect and none existed? Maybe the driver rushing past was headed to a hospital. Maybe the coworker who ignored your greeting was overwhelmed with personal grief. Maybe the friend who hasn't replied is silently fighting depression. The mind quickly fills these empty vessels with imagined intentions, carelessness, disrespect, malice. Through Zen practice, we learn to observe this pattern. We practice mindfulness, watching thoughts as they rise, without getting swept away. We notice the signs: a tightening chest, shallow breath, clenched. These become gentle bells of awareness, inviting us to pause and look again. The great Zen master Dogen once said, "To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." And in forgetting the self, even for a moment, we open the door to freedom, to peace, to sleep. When we let go of the ego's constant need to assert and defend itself, we begin to see things as they truly are. We begin to recognize the empty boats in our lives, events unfolding naturally in the great river of existence, without personal meaning and without deliberate offense. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Every time we react in anger, it is we who suffer first and most deeply. But when we recognize the empty boats in our interactions, the situations where we assumed intent that wasn't there, we free ourselves from this self-created pain. So tonight, as you gently reflect on your day, think of a moment when you felt offended, hurt, or slighted. Can you now see the empty boat in that moment? Can you notice how your own mind may have filled that empty vessel with assumptions, judgments, or imagined slights? And in that realization, can you feel a lightness, a small precious freedom that comes from letting go? As the Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The peace you've been searching for has always been here, quietly waiting in the stillness that remains when the stories of the ego fade away. Our next story, the monk and the tiger. Now let us travel to a winding mountain path where a quiet monk faces a challenge unlike any other. In a secluded forest monastery nestled high in the mountains, there lived a gentle monk known for his deep wisdom and unshakable calm. Each day he walked the wooded trails, meditating on nature's beauty and the timeless teachings of the Buddha. He found peace in the forest's quiet, a place where every sound, every breeze, every rustle of leaves became a lesson in mindfulness. One day, as he walked a narrow trail along a steep cliff, a sudden sound shattered the stillness, a tiger's roar. Startled, he turned to see a powerful tiger racing toward him through the trees, its eyes fixed on him, its movement swift and terrifying. Without thinking, the monk ran, his robes fluttering in the wind as he fled down the path. Then just ahead he spotted a vine dangling over the edge of the cliff. With no time to think, he grabbed it and began climbing down. But as he looked below, his heart sank. Another tiger stood at the base of the cliff, pacing, waiting. He was trapped, no way up, no safe way down. There, hanging from the vine, between two fierce tigers, one from above, one from below, the monk paused. And in that moment, something remarkable happened. He noticed a small strawberry plant growing from the cliffside. Dangling just within reach was a single ripe red strawberry. The monk reached out, plucked the berry, and placed it in his mouth. The flavor was sweet, rich, and perfect. For that single moment, there were no tigers. Only the joy of tasting the strawberry, pure, complete, and alive. Despite the danger, the monk had found peace, not by escaping, but by fully inhabiting the moment he was in. The Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. This is the essence of the monk and the tiger story. You and I, we live suspended between two tigers, the regrets of the past and the fears of the future. We replay conversations we wish had gone differently. We relive missed chances, broken relationships, unspoken words. These are the tigers above. And we worry about what's ahead, our health, finances, responsibilities, the unknown. These are the tigers below. Why is it so hard to stay present? Zen Buddhism teaches that our minds, shaped by evolution, are wired for survival, constantly scanning for threats, solving problems, planning escapes. But what was once useful for staying alive can now rob us of truly living. Our thinking mind whispers that peace will come when the past is fixed or the future is secure. But in truth, peace is only ever found here, right now. Reflect for a moment. How much of your suffering comes from clinging to what's already past? How much from fearing what hasn't happened? And yet, always within reach, there is a strawberry, a moment of sweetness, a spark of presence, a simple joy. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "The present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. The strawberry might be sunlight warming your skin, the scent of your favorite tea, the comfort of your bed, or the quiet miracle of a breath taken fully. It doesn't erase the tigers, but it offers something else, a new way to relate to them, with presence, with peace." Zen invites us to embrace ichigo, ichi-e, a Japanese phrase meaning one time, one meeting. A reminder that each moment is a once-in-a-lifetime gift, and when we truly see the uniqueness of this moment, we naturally want to show up for it, fully, gratefully, lovingly. The Buddha once said, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly." This teaching is an invitation, a gentle reminder to notice where your attention tends to wander. Are you constantly replaying old conversations, regretting choices made? Or perhaps you're projecting into the future, preparing for challenges that haven't yet arrived. When you find yourself drifting, can you return softly to the strawberry of the present moment? Right now, there is something available to be savored, something small, something real. Perhaps it's the quiet rhythm of your breath, the comforting weight of a blanket on your body, the hush of the evening all around you. Let these be your strawberry. Tonight, as thoughts of tomorrow's responsibilities arise, or echoes of yesterday linger, recall the monk and his moment of joy on the cliffside. He could not change his danger, but he could choose where to place his attention. The Buddha taught, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. By pausing to enjoy the sweetness available in each step, each breath, we discover something surprising. Peace is not waiting for us at the end of the journey when the tigers are gone. Peace is available now, even while they circle around us. The story of the two arrows. Our next story offers another powerful insight, one that gets to the heart of why we suffer. One quiet afternoon, the Buddha sat among his disciples in a forest clearing. The wind moved softly through the trees. Birds called out in the distance. A troubled student stepped forward and bowed low. "Master," he said, "why do we suffer so much in this life? Pain seems to follow us no matter where we go. Why is this so, and how can we find peace?" The Buddha looked at him with deep compassion and understanding. "Let me explain," he said gently. "Imagine that a person is struck by an arrow. The pain of that arrow is sharp and unavoidable. This is the first arrow." The disciples nodded. They understood. This first arrow represents life's inevitable difficulties, illness, loss, aging, heart. But now, the Buddha continued, imagine that this same person is struck by a second arrow, not from outside but from within, their own mind. This second arrow is made of fear, anger, resentment, and despair. He paused and looked around. You see, while the first arrow is inevitable, the second arrow is optional. The first arrow is pain. The second is our reaction to it. The mental stories we add, the resistance we create, the suffering we pile on top of what is already difficult. The disciple listened intently as the Buddha explained further. When pain arises, whether physical or emotional, most people unconsciously shoot a second arrow at themselves. They become upset about being upset. They fear the fear. They resist the pain, and in doing so, they deepen the wound. But through mindfulness, the Buddha said, we can learn to observe the first arrow without adding a second. We can experience the pain, yes, but without the story, without the judgment, without the extra suffering. The disciple asked, "Master, how can we stop the second arrow?" The Buddha smiled. By practicing mindfulness, he said, when pain arises, observe it, feel it, but do not merge with it. You are not your pain. You are the awareness in which pain arises and passes. He added, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. This simple yet profound teaching reveals something essential. While we cannot avoid all pain in life, we do have tremendous influence over how much we suffer because of that pain. But why do we so often shoot the second arrow at ourselves? Zen Buddhism points to several unconscious habits of the mind that explain this. Aversion, our deep-seated tendency to reject anything unpleasant. When pain appears, we instinctively recoil. But this resistance adds a layer of tension, turning pain into suffering. Identification. We don't just feel pain. We become it. Instead of saying pain is present, we say I am in pain. This subtle shift turns a passing experience into our entire identity. Proliferation. The mind's habit of spiraling, adding thought after thought to a single event. A headache becomes, what if this is serious? What if I can't work tomorrow? Why does this always happen to me? Each of these thoughts is a second arrow piercing us again and again. These patterns run deep. Most of us don't even notice them. That's why the Buddha emphasized mindfulness as both shield and medicine. Through mindfulness, we become aware of the first arrow as it lands. And more importantly, we notice when the hand of the mind reaches for the second. In that moment of noticing, we have a choice. To breathe, to soften, to allow pain to be present without building a fortress of suffering around it. So tonight, as you rest, reflect gently. Where have you felt the sting of the first arrow today? And where might you have added a second? Without judgment, simply notice. And if you did shoot the second arrow, know that you're not alone. We all do. It's part of being human. But with awareness, we can stop. We can lower the bow. And in the silence that follows, we might just find peace. The creative power of mind. The Buddha once said, what you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create. This simple truth reveals the profound creative power of our minds. Each thought is like a seed, each emotion like water, each act of imagination like sunlight. If we respond to pain with aversion, self-identification, and mental proliferation, we water the seeds of suffering. But if we meet pain with mindful awareness and gentle acceptance, we plant the seeds of healing and growth. Consider a time you were disappointed, perhaps a rejection, a failure, or a painful loss. The first arrow is the event itself, along with its natural emotional response, sadness, hurt, or grief. But the second arrows often come swiftly and silently. This always happens to me. Globalizing. I'll never succeed. Catastrophizing. I should have done better. Self-criticism. This isn't fair. Resistance to reality. Each thought adds another layer of pain, reinforcing and deepening our suffering. Zen teacher Charlotte Joko Beck once said, pain is not something to be avoided. It is something to be experienced, without resistance. This is the heart of working skillfully with the first arrow. We don't pretend pain isn't there. We don't push it away or drown in it. Instead, we offer it our curious, compassionate attention, without adding judgment, resistance, or elaborate storytelling. The Buddha taught, if you are facing in the right direction, all you need to do is keep walking. The right direction is not away from pain, it is toward it, not to wallow in it, but to meet it with wisdom and presence. Tonight, as you lie in stillness, notice what arises. Is there a discomfort in the body, a heaviness in the heart, a restlessness in the mind? Can you gently ask, is this the first arrow or the second? And can you meet whatever you find with kind awareness? The Buddha said, the way is not in the sky, the way is in the heart. Freedom from suffering does not come from escaping our humanity, but by embracing it with eyes open and heart soft. The parable of the mustard seed. Now let us turn to a story that illuminates a universal truth, the nature of loss, and how understanding it can bring peace. Once, long ago, there lived a young woman named Kisa Gautami. She was gentle, devoted, and full of love for her little son. But tragedy struck. Her beloved child fell ill and died. Kisa was overcome with grief. Her mind refused to accept reality. Clutching her son's lifeless body, she wandered through the village, knocking on doors, pleading, please help me, my son is dead. Is there anyone who can bring him back to life? House after house turned her away. Some offered sympathy, others shook their heads in sorrow. But no one could offer the miracle she begged for. Finally, someone took pity on her and said, go to the Buddha. Perhaps he can help you. With trembling hope, Kisa Gautami made her way to the Buddha, who was seated beneath a Bodhi tree, surrounded by his disciples. She knelt before him, placed her child at his feet, and cried, Master, please bring my son back. I cannot bear this pain. The Buddha looked at her with deep compassion. He saw her suffering, but also her readiness to learn. "I will help you," he said gently. "But first, bring me a single mustard seed from a household that has never known death." Kisa's eyes lit up. "Yes, master, I will find it," she said, already turning to leave. But the Buddha added, "Remember, the seed must come from a home where no one has ever died." Kisa set out immediately. She came to the first house and made her request. The kind woman opened the door and said softly, "I'm sorry, but my husband died last year." Kisa nodded and moved to the next house. "I'm sorry," they told her, "but we lost our daughter many years ago." House after house, the answer was the same. A mother lost, a brother, a wife, a child. As the day wore on, Kisa's urgency gave way to realization. Every family knew the ache of loss. Death, she discovered, was not her private sorrow. It was part of the human condition. As the sun set, she returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed, but with a transformed heart. Falling to her knees, she said softly, "Master, I could not find a single home untouched by death. Every family has lost someone. Now I understand, my grief is not mine alone." The Buddha nodded. "Kisa," he said, "you have learned a great truth. Death is inevitable. Suffering comes to all who cling and grasp. But through understanding impermanence, you can find peace." This story is a gentle reminder. Loss is not a mistake. It is a part of life's design. And while grief is natural, we are not alone in it. By opening our hearts to the shared nature of loss, we find not just sorrow, but connection. And in that connection, we begin to heal. The nature of existence, the mustard seed, impermanence, and inner freedom. This is the nature of existence. With the Buddha's compassionate guidance, Kisa Gautami came to understand that her suffering, though deep and overwhelming, was not hers alone to carry. At first, her grief had narrowed her vision. Her pain felt personal, isolated. But through her journey, she awakened to a profound truth. Everyone experiences loss. And that realization changed everything. She gently released her child's body and buried him with dignity. For the first time since his death, her heart opened to peace, not because the pain disappeared, but because she no longer resisted the truth. The Buddha once said, "Everything that has a beginning has an ending. Make your peace with that, and all will be well." This is the essence of Kisa Gautami's transformation. Her story teaches one of the most difficult and liberating truths. Nothing lasts forever. Why is impermanence so hard to accept? Zen Buddhism points to craving, a deep-rooted desire for things to stay the same as the root of our suffering. We want the joyful to remain joyful. We want the beautiful to stay beautiful. And most of all, we want the people we love to remain with us unchanged, unharmed, and unlost. But the world is in constant motion. Clinging to permanence in a world of change creates tension, resistance, and pain. Like Kisa, we often begin with denial. We try to undo what cannot be undone. We seek to reverse the irreversible. This is a natural part of grief. But when we become stuck there, when we stay at the door of denial, we stop ourselves from healing. The Buddha didn't confront Kisa with abstract teachings. He didn't say, "All things are impermanent." Instead, he gave her an experience, a chance to see this truth through her own heart and eyes. That kind of understanding is not just heard, it's felt. He once said, "The root of suffering is attachment." Kisa's love for her son was real, but her suffering came from clinging, from the belief that he must not die, that things must not change. Her journey through the village taught her that this kind of clinging was not only futile, it was isolating. Every home had been touched by death. Every family had known loss. And in that realization, she joined what Buddhists call the fellowship of suffering, a truth that connects rather than separates. When we understand this, grief becomes shared, not solitary. We begin to see our loss as part of the great unfolding of human life, not a mistake or punishment. The Zen master Basui wrote, "To see the truth, leave desire behind. If you do not give up desire, you will not see the truth. Kisa's desire to reverse her son's death clouded her vision. Only when she surrendered that impossible wish could she see the reality before her, and in seeing it, begin to heal. The Buddha didn't comfort her with stories of reunion in another life. He didn't offer hope that her child lived on elsewhere. Instead, he guided her toward alignment with reality, which is the true ground of peace. He taught, "The trouble is, you think you have time." This gentle but pointed reminder invites us to hold each moment more dearly, not in fear, but in presence. To love more deeply, to live more gently, to let go more gracefully. As you reflect on your own losses, be it a loved one, a relationship, a role, or a phase of life, ask yourself, can I recognize the mustard seed lesson? Is my suffering made heavier by my resistance to change? Can I meet the truth of impermanence, not with despair but with compassion? The Buddha said, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. That perfection is not in the absence of loss. It's in the interconnectedness of all things, the rising and falling, the coming together and the letting go. This is the rhythm of life. So tonight, remember Kisa Gautami. Let her story be your mirror. Let it remind you, you are not alone in your pain. You are held in a great shared experience, the experience of being human. And as the Buddha taught, in the end, only three things matter: how much you love, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. The wisdom of maybe, the farmer and the horse. Let us now turn to another story, one that teaches us the value of suspending judgment and remaining equanimous in the face of change. In a quiet village lived a humble farmer. He had only one horse, which he relied on for everything, plowing his field, carrying goods, and daily labor. His life was modest, but he was content. One morning the farmer woke to find that his horse had run away. His neighbors, upon hearing the news, rushed to his home. "What terrible luck," they cried. "How will you manage without your horse?" The farmer calmly replied, "Maybe." His neighbors were puzzled. How could he be so indifferent? They left, shaking their heads, certain he was in denial. A few days later, the horse returned and brought with it a small herd of wild horses from the mountains. The neighbors returned, wide-eyed. "How wonderful," they exclaimed. "Now you have many horses. What incredible fortune." The farmer smiled softly and said again, "Maybe." This simple word, maybe, contains deep wisdom. It reminds us that events themselves are neither good nor bad in absolute terms. It is our interpretation, our story, that defines them. We often rush to label experiences. This is good, this is bad, this is a blessing, this is a curse. But the truth is, life is far more mysterious and interconnected than we can see. And often what seems like a loss today becomes the seed of growth tomorrow. What appears to be a misfortune may carry unexpected gifts. The story of the farmer and the horse invites us to cultivate equanimity, the inner balance to meet life with openness, not reactivity. As we continue, we will explore the next chapter of the farmer's story and the deeper lessons it holds. But first, pause here. Breathe. Reflect. Can you think of a time in your life when something you saw as misfortune later turned into grace? Can you, like the farmer, rest in not knowing and respond to change with the quiet wisdom of maybe? The farmer's wisdom. Maybe. A few days after the farmer's wild horses returned, his son decided to try taming one of them. But while riding, he was thrown violently from the horse and broke his leg. The injury was serious, and the son would be unable to help with farm work for the foreseeable future. Hearing of the accident, the neighbors once again came to the farmer's house, this time filled with sympathy. "What bad luck," they said. "Your son has broken his leg and now cannot help you. This is truly unfortunate." As before, the farmer responded with calmness. "Maybe," he said. The neighbors were now thoroughly baffled. Every time something significant happened, whether it seemed good or bad, the farmer gave the same nonchalant response. Why wouldn't he react more strongly? Was he indifferent? A few weeks later, turmoil swept through the country. War broke out and soldiers came to the village to draft all the able-bodied young men into the army. Many of the villagers' sons were taken away to fight in a conflict that promised hardship and danger. But because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was not drafted and remained at home with his father. Once again, the neighbors visited the farmer. "How fortunate you are," they said. "Because of your son's injury, he was spared from the war. What amazing luck." And once again the farmer replied with quiet wisdom, "Maybe." The wisdom behind maybe. The Buddha taught that nothing is permanent. Everything is in a state of constant change. Being is always becoming. This profound truth is at the heart of the farmer's steady response. His consistent maybe reflects not apathy, but deep understanding that what appears favorable or unfavorable in one moment may turn out to be quite different in the next. Why are we so quick to label experiences as good or bad? Zen Buddhism points to the mind's habitual categorization, its constant sorting of experiences into desirable or undesirable, fortunate or unfortunate. This dualistic thinking keeps us on an emotional roller coaster. We soar when things go well and crash when they don't. But as the farmer's story shows, we never have the full picture. Today's setback might protect us from tomorrow's tragedy. Today's blessing may set the stage for a future challenge. Equanimity, not indifference, but balance. The concept of non-judgment in Zen does not mean detachment or emotional coldness. The farmer wasn't indifferent to his son, his horse, or his farm. He cared deeply, but he didn't allow his peace of mind to be hijacked by changing circumstances. He practiced equanimity, what the Buddha described as a calm and balanced state of mind amid life's inevitable ups and downs. Zen master Sengsun wrote in the Shin Shin Ming, "The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences." When we stop insisting that life conform to our ideas of how things should be, we discover a deeper kind of freedom. We begin to trust life's unfolding, recognizing that its inherent wisdom often reveals itself in ways our limited perspective cannot anticipate. Comparison, the thief of peace. The Buddha also warned against envy and comparison. Do not overrate what you have received, nor envy others. He who envies others does not obtain peace of mind. How often do we compare our lives to those around us, deciding we're either blessed or cursed, based on those shifting external markers? The farmer's neighbors constantly judged his situation based on their own ideas of fortune and misfortune, but the farmer remained free from those limiting narratives, practicing maybe in modern life. Our modern lives offer countless opportunities to practice the maybe mindset, the job you didn't get that led to a more fulfilling path, the relationship that ended, creating space for healing and growth, the illness that forced you to reevaluate your priorities and slow down, the financial loss that taught you resilience and simplicity. In retrospect, many of us can point to events that seemed disastrous at the time, but ultimately became turning points, gifts in disguise. The 13th century poet Rumi captured this truth. What appears to be a curse may be a blessing, and what appears to be a blessing may be a curse. The farmer embodied this not as theory but as lived wisdom. His maybe wasn't passive resignation, it was active awareness. It was the recognition that life's full story is always still unfolding. Beyond labels, the sky has no east or west. The Buddha once said, "In the sky there is no distinction of east and west." People create distinctions out of their own minds, and then believe them to be true. Likewise, the labels of good luck and bad luck are mental constructs. Reality is simply a flowing river of causes and conditions, neither inherently positive nor negative. Tonight's reflection. As you reflect on recent events you've labeled as good luck or bad luck, try holding them with the farmer's gentle maybe. Notice how this mindset can soften your anxiety about current struggles. Notice how it tempers attachment to things that seem to be going well. Notice how it opens up space for wisdom, for trust, and for peace. As the Buddha taught, with our thoughts we make the world. And with the farmer's maybe, we are reminded that peace is always one thought away, waiting in the space between judgment and surrender. The Buddha and the Angry Man, a lesson in emotional mastery. The farmers maybe teach us that we always have a choice in how we interpret our experiences, and this choice profoundly shapes our peace of mind. The story that follows takes us deeper into this wisdom by revealing the power of non-reactivity and emotional mastery. The encounter. Once, while the Buddha was teaching a group of disciples in a peaceful forest grove, a man approached with fury burning in his eyes. He had heard of the Buddha's teachings and growing influence, but instead of curiosity, the man felt threatened. Jealousy and resentment festered in his heart. He saw the Buddha's calm presence as arrogance and his wisdom as a challenge to his own beliefs. Determined to confront him, the man stormed forward and began hurling insults. "You're nothing but a fraud," he shouted. "You pretend to be enlightened, but you're just deceiving people. You sit there acting like you're above everyone else. Do you think you're better than me?" The Buddha sat quietly under the shade of a Bodhi tree. His expression remained calm, his body still. He said nothing in return. His silence was not cold, but serene, rooted in deep compassion and understanding. The more the man shouted, the more frustrated he became. The Buddha's peaceful demeanor confused him. He had expected a reaction, a defense, an argument, something to validate his anger. But the Buddha gave him none of that. Finally, exhausted and bewildered, the man demanded, "Why won't you say anything? Why won't you defend yourself? Don't you care what I think of you?" The Buddha looked at him gently and spoke with a voice as calm as still water. "Tell me, if someone offers you a gift and you choose not to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The man, caught off guard, thought for a moment before replying, "Well, it would still belong to the person who offered it. If I don't take it, it remains theirs." The Buddha nodded. "Exactly. In the same way, if you offer me your anger, and I do not accept it, then who does it belong to?" The man stood in stunned silence. His anger, he suddenly realized, had not touched the Buddha. It had only consumed him. The Buddha remained untouched, serene, free. The Buddha continued, "If I do not accept your insults and your anger, they return to you. You are the one who suffers from them, not me. I choose not to be troubled by your words. Instead, I choose peace." The realization, in that moment, something shifted in the man. He realized that all the energy he had spent in rage had only brought suffering to himself. The Buddha had not responded with defensiveness, nor had he retaliated. He had simply remained at peace. Humbled, the man bowed his head. "Master," he said, "I see now that my anger has only caused me pain. How can I learn to be at peace as you are?" The Buddha smiled with warmth. "Anger is like a hot coal. You pick up with the intention of throwing it at someone else, but in the process you burn yourself. Let go of the coal. Let go of your anger. Practice mindfulness, compassion, and understanding. Through these, you will find peace." From that day forward, the man became a follower of the Buddha's teachings, committed to the path of inner peace and emotional wisdom. Anger, a fire that burns the holder. The Buddha taught, you are not punished for your anger. You are punished by your anger. This profound teaching shines a light on why reactive emotions cause such deep suffering. When we carry anger, resentment, or hatred, we poison ourselves far more than those we aim them at. Every moment consumed by rage is a moment stolen from peace. Every thought of revenge is energy diverted from healing. Why then do we hold on so tightly? Zen Buddhism identifies several reasons anger is so difficult to release. Chief among them is our sense of righteousness. We often believe our anger is justified, earned. We confuse releasing anger with excusing the wrong that triggered it. But the Buddha's path offers a more liberating perspective. We can pursue justice, truth, and boundaries without poisoning our own hearts. Letting go of anger doesn't mean accepting injustice. It means refusing to be destroyed by it. Another challenge is how strongly we identify with our emotions. We say I am angry rather than I am experiencing anger. We fuse the emotion with our identity. In doing so, we give it power, mistaking it for who we are. The freedom of non-reactivity. The Buddha's serenity in the face of insult wasn't passive, it was powerful. His peace came not from avoiding confrontation, but from mastering his inner world. He showed us that we are not slaves to external triggers. We can choose not to absorb what others project onto us. Tonight's reflection. This kind of non-reactivity isn't weakness, it's strength. The strength to pause, to breathe, to choose compassion over retaliation. It is a path to liberation, not just from anger, but from the suffering that clings to it. Think of someone or something that recently stirred anger in you. What was the story you told yourself about that moment? What if you didn't have to accept that anger as your burden? What if, like the Buddha, you could observe the flame without being burned by it? What if you could choose peace, not as a denial of reality, but as a deeper response to it? As you sit in quiet reflection tonight, ask yourself, am I holding a hot coal in my hand? If so, consider gently setting it down. We often say, I am angry, as if anger is inseparable from our very self. When someone suggests letting go of anger, it can feel like giving up a part of who we are. Zen practice invites us to create space between awareness and emotion, to observe anger without being consumed by it. This shift helps us realize that emotions arise and pass. They do not define us. We are not our anger. Let that be your practice. Let that be your path to. Another challenge lies in cultural conditioning. Many of us grow up believing that anger is power, that it motivates action and demands respect. We fear that without anger, we might become passive or be taken advantage of. But the Buddha's response to the angry man reveals a different kind of power, not the reactive force of aggression, but the steady, immovable strength of equanimity. The Buddha said, hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. This ancient truth challenges the assumption that anger is an effective response to harm. Does meeting hostility with hostility truly resolve conflict, or does it only perpetuate cycles of pain and reactivity? Declining the gift does not mean becoming emotionally disconnected or indifferent to injustice. The Buddha did not ignore the angry man. He was fully present, engaged, and responsive, but he responded from compassion rather than reaction, from wisdom rather than ego defense. The metaphor of the gift is especially illuminating. Emotions like anger, criticism, and judgment only affect us when we accept them. When someone offers negativity, we can choose either to absorb it and let it disturb our peace, or to decline the offering and maintain our equanimity. Embracing anger with mindfulness. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a practice called embracing anger with mindfulness. It involves recognizing anger as it arises, breathing with it, and treating it with the same tenderness we would show a crying child. Rather than suppressing or mindlessly expressing anger, we acknowledge it with kind awareness, understanding its causes and its impermanent nature. This is the essence of non-reactivity in Zen practice. Not withdrawal from engagement, but engagement with a different quality of awareness. Embracing anger with mindfulness. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a practice called embracing anger with mindfulness. It involves recognizing anger as it arises, breathing with it, and treating it with the same tenderness we would show a crying child. Rather than suppressing or mindlessly expressing anger, we acknowledge it with kind awareness, understanding its causes and its impermanent nature. The Buddha taught, if you truly loved yourself, you would never harm another. This points to the deep interconnectedness of self-care and care for others. When we react with anger, we harm ourselves first and most directly. Choosing peace over reactivity is not a selfless sacrifice. It is the most profound form of self-care. Tonight's reflection. As you reflect on recent moments that triggered anger or resentment, experiment with the Buddha's gift metaphor. Can you recognize that you have a choice about whether to accept the gifts of others' negativity? Can you feel the freedom that comes from declining these offerings? Remember the Buddha's words. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets. By releasing that coal, you free not only yourself, but also create space for genuine resolution and understanding. The Monk and the Teacup, a lesson in impermanence. Let us now turn to a story about the wisdom of impermanence and non-attachment. In a quiet Zen monastery nestled high in the mountains, a revered monk lived a life of deep contemplation and mindfulness. His students admired his wisdom, calm demeanor, and his ability to embrace the present moment without disturbance from the chaos around him. Every day the monk would sit in meditation, drink tea, and share lessons with his students. One afternoon, during their usual tea ceremony, the monk held up a simple clay teacup and gazed at it silently for a long moment. The cup was beautiful in its simplicity, with a soft earthy color and a perfectly rounded shape. The students, curious about their master's silent contemplation, waited eagerly for his words. After a few moments, the monk smiled and said, "This teacup is already broken." The students looked at one another in confusion. The cup was whole, undamaged, and perfectly intact. One younger student could no longer contain his curiosity and spoke up. "Master, the teacup is not broken. It is perfectly fine. Why do you say it is already broken?" The monk, still smiling, placed the cup gently on the table and replied softly, "In my mind, this teacup is already broken. It may seem whole now, but one day, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps years from now, it will break. This is inevitable. When I understand that it is already broken, I can fully appreciate it as it is, without clinging. I can enjoy drinking tea from it, knowing its life is temporary." The students sat quietly, absorbing the weight of the master's words. They realized he was speaking not only about the teacup, but offering a deeper lesson about life itself. The monk continued, "Everything in life is like this teacup. All things, no matter how beautiful or precious, are impermanent. We cannot hold on to anything forever. When we truly understand that life's moments, relationships, and experiences are impermanent, we become free to enjoy them fully, without the constant fear of losing them. This awareness allows us to appreciate each moment as it is, knowing it will inevitably pass. When that time comes, we suffer less because we have already accepted the transient nature of all things." One of the older students nodded thoughtfully and asked, "Master, does this mean we should not love or care for things because they will one day be gone?" The monk shook his head gently. "No, it means the opposite. When we accept the impermanence of all things, we can love more deeply. We are no longer clinging out of fear, but appreciating things for what they are right now. We understand they are part of the natural flow of life. This understanding allows us to live with a peaceful heart, unburdened by attachment to things destined to change." The Buddha taught, "All conditioned things are impermanent." When we see this truth clearly, we become disenchanted with suffering born from clinging. This profound insight lies at the heart of the teacup story, and points to one of the most liberating yet challenging aspects of Zen practice, embracing impermanence not as a mere philosophical idea, but as a lived reality. Why do we resist impermanence? Zen Buddhism teaches that our resistance to impermanence stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. We perceive things as solid, separate, and lasting, when in fact they are fluid, interconnected, and transient. This misperception leads to attachment or clinging, our desperate attempt to hold on to what cannot be held. Consider how this attachment appears in daily life. We fear losing possessions or becoming separated from them. We cling to relationships, resisting their inevitable changes. We fight against aging, illness, and the natural decline of body and mind. We defend our ideas, opinions, and identities as if they were permanent. The monk's statement that the teacup is already broken offers a radically different way of relating to impermanence. Instead of denying or resisting change, he embraces it preemptively, acknowledging the inevitable end of all things. This is not pessimism, but clear-eyed realism that paradoxically deepens his appreciation of the present moment. The Buddha said, The world is afflicted by death and decay, but the wise do not grieve, having realized the nature of the world. This teaching does not encourage callousness or detachment from caring. Rather, it points to a different quality of care, one that is not distorted by impossible expectations of permanence. The monk does not love his teacup less because it will break. He loves it more, precisely because its existence is fleeting and precious. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki explained this paradox beautifully. When we understand the truth of impermanence and find our composure in it, we find ourselves in nana, a state of composure not achieved by resignation but by fully embracing reality as it is. This composure allows for deep engagement with life, because we are no longer fighting against its fundamental nature, cultivating the already broken perspective. How might we develop this perspective in our own lives? Notice your attachments. Observe the people, things, and circumstances you most fear losing. Acknowledge impermanence gently. Instead of suppressing fear or clinging tightly, remind yourself, this too will pass. Let this be not a dreary reminder, but an invitation to cherish the present moment. Shift your focus toward what endures. The Buddha, neither fire nor wind, birth nor death, can erase our good deeds. While material things, including our bodies, are impermanent, the impact of our actions and the quality of our presence endure beyond physical forms. By cultivating wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness, qualities that transcend impermanence, we create a foundation that is stable no matter how much the world changes around us. Notice if you've ever found yourself caught in a confusion similar to the young seekers in spiritual traditions. Perhaps you felt overwhelmed by conflicting teachings or personal growth methods. Maybe you've worried about finding the one true path among many options, or you've hesitated to commit to a practice, fearing you might choose the wrong one. Tonight, as you rest in awareness, can you connect with the wisdom of the boat metaphor? Can you sense which practices, teachings, or approaches have truly helped you cross the waters of confusion toward greater clarity and peace? As the Buddha taught, the whole path of mindfulness is this: whatever you are doing, be aware of it. This simple instruction reminds us that the most important quality of any spiritual approach is its ability to awaken us to the present moment, the only place where genuine transformation can occur. The sound of one hand. Let us now explore a story about the nature of true understanding. This is the sound of one hand. Hakuin was a renowned Zen master in Edo period Japan, known for his rigorous teaching style and for revitalizing Zen practice by emphasizing direct experience over intellectual understanding. Among many koans, paradoxical questions, or statements used in Zen training, Hakuin's most famous was remarkably simple: what is the sound of one hand? One day, an earnest young monk came to study with Hakuin. After preliminary training, Hakuin assigned him the koan. You must discover the sound of one hand, the master instructed. Until you do, you will understand nothing of Zen. The monk bowed and retreated to meditate on this perplexing question. After a few days, he returned. Master, I believe I have the answer. The sound of one hand is the sound of water flowing in a stream. Hakuin shook his head. No, keep working. The monk went back to meditation. A week later, he returned again. I have it now. The sound of one hand is the sound of wind moving through pine needles. Hakuin replied. No, that is still the sound of something. Go deeper. Again and again the monk offered answers. The cry of a bird, the rustle of leaves, the distant temple bell. Each time Hakuin rejected the response and sent him back to continue his inquiry. After months of intensive practice, the monk's understanding began to shift. He stopped trying to find a clever answer. Instead, he allowed the question to penetrate beyond his conceptual mind. One morning, as he sat in meditation, something broke open within him. He rushed to Hakuin's quarters. When Hakuin asked, "What is the sound of one hand?" the monk responded not with words, but with presence, a direct, immediate demonstration that transcended intellectual understanding. Hakuin smiled and nodded. recognizing that the monk had finally moved beyond seeking answers to experiencing the question itself as a gateway to direct realization. The Buddha taught, "The finger pointing to the moon is not the moon." This teaching highlights the crucial distinction between conceptual understanding, words and ideas that point toward truth, and direct realization, which is the truth itself. The monk's journey from intellectual answers to immediate experience reflects this fundamental shift. Why do we mistake concepts for reality? Zen Buddhism identifies several patterns that keep us trapped in conceptual understanding rather than direct experience. Educational conditioning. We are trained to believe that understanding comes primarily through thinking, analysis, and verbal formulation. This creates a bias toward intellectual comprehension at the expense of other ways of knowing. Discomfort with not knowing. Our minds resist remaining in uncertainty or openness. When faced with a question like "what is the sound of one hand?", our impulse is to produce an answer, any answer, rather than dwell in the fertile space of questioning itself. Separation of knowing from being. We tend to treat understanding as something we possess, rather than something we embody. True Zen realization is not about having the right concept, but about becoming the understanding itself through direct experience. The Japanese term mu, meaning nothing or non-being, is often used in Zen to cut through conceptual thinking. For example, when a monk asked Master Joshu whether a dog has Buddha nature, Joshu famously replied, "Mu," not as a negative answer, but as a way of rejecting the very framework of the question. This use of mu exemplifies Zen's approach, transcending dualistic thinking through direct pointing. Koans like the sound of one hand are not philosophical puzzles to be solved, but tools for exhausting the conceptual mind and opening a doorway to direct experience. They deliberately challenge logical thinking, creating conditions where intellectual understanding must give way to a different mode of knowing. The Buddha said, "As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not shaken by praise or blame." This steadiness comes not from conceptual understanding, but from direct realization, a knowing so complete that it transforms the knower. Concepts can be shaken by counter-arguments. Direct experience has a solidity that transcends logical debate. Reflection. In your own life, notice the difference between conceptual knowledge and embodied understanding. You may know intellectually that life is impermanent, but this remains abstract until you experience the death of someone close. You may understand mindfulness as a concept, but this differs fundamentally from the direct experience of present moment awareness. Tonight, as you rest in awareness, can you let go of what you think should happen and simply be with what is happening? As the Buddha taught, don't just do something, sit there. This instruction reverses our usual impulse toward activity and invites us into the direct experience that lies beyond our busy conceptualizing. Let us now turn to our final story, one that illuminates the way beyond seeking, the sacred mountain. In ancient China, a young scholar named Li had devoted years to studying spiritual texts from many traditions. He had read countless sutras, memorized sacred verses, and debated with learned masters. Despite his extensive knowledge, Li felt that something essential was missing, a direct experience of the truth these teachings pointed toward. Having heard that a great Zen master lived as a hermit on a sacred mountain, Li decided to make the difficult journey to seek the master's guidance. After many days of arduous travel through forests and steep slopes, he finally reached the simple hut where the master lived. The old master welcomed him warmly and invited him to rest from his journey. After sharing a simple meal, Li explained the purpose of his visit. "Master," he said, "I have studied the spiritual teachings extensively. I know the doctrines and philosophies, but I feel I am missing the essence. I have come to ask, what is the ultimate truth? What is the final goal of all spiritual seeking? What is enlightenment?" The master looked at him with kind eyes and said, "Before I answer, would you like some tea?" Li nodded, and the master rose to prepare it. While the water was heating, the master asked, "Tell me, what did you notice as you climbed the mountain to reach my hut?" Li thought for a moment. The path was steep and difficult. There were many rocks and roots that made climbing challenging. Sometimes I had to rest to catch my breath. "And did you notice anything else?" the master inquired. "There were beautiful pine trees and colorful wildflowers along the way," Lee added. "At one point I crossed a stream with incredibly clear water, and occasionally there were gaps in the trees that revealed breathtaking views of the valleys below." "I see," said the master, pouring the tea. "And now that you are here, what do you expect to find?" Lee hesitated. "I'm not sure exactly. Some profound teaching or experience that will finally make everything clear, the ultimate truth that all the texts point toward but never quite reveal." The master handed Lee a cup of tea and sat down beside him at the entrance of the hut. From this vantage point they could see the magnificent landscape, mountains rising in the distance, clouds drifting across the vast sky, birds soaring on thermal currents. After sipping their tea in silence for some time, the master spoke. "The ultimate truth you seek was present in every step of your journey, in the effort of your climbing, in the beauty you observed, in the challenges you faced. It is here now, in this cup of tea, in the mountains before us, in the space of awareness in which all these experiences arise." He continued, "There is nothing to attain beyond what is already present. Enlightenment is not some special state, separate from your ordinary experience. It is seeing the extraordinary within the ordinary, recognizing the sacred nature of each moment." The master gestured toward the panorama before them. "This mountain you call sacred is no more sacred than the ground where your home stands. These trees are no more special than those growing in your village. This moment is no different in its essential nature from every other moment of your life." Lee looked confused. "Then why did I need to make this difficult journey? Why do we study and practice at all?" The master smiled gently. "The journey was necessary, not because the truth is hidden on this mountain, but because you believed it was. Sometimes we must exhaust our seeking before we can recognize what has never been absent. The spiritual path is not about finding what is missing, but about seeing what is already here." As they continued to sit in the quiet beauty of the mountain evening, Lee began to understand the truth he had been seeking was not hidden in esoteric teachings or special experiences, but in the direct, unfiltered encounter with life itself, just as it is, in all its ordinary marvel. The Buddha taught, if we could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our whole life would change. This teaching points to the radical shift in perception that occurs when we stop overlooking the ordinary and recognize the profound nature of what is already present. Lee's journey up the sacred mountain represents a common belief that truth is elsewhere, requiring special circumstances or experiences to access. Why do we persistently believe that what we seek is somewhere else? Zen Buddhism identifies several patterns that maintain this illusion. Idealization. We create perfect mental images of enlightenment, peace, or fulfillment, then compare them unfavorably with our present experience. This comparison guarantees dissatisfaction with what is already here. Spiritual bypassing. Using spiritual ideas or practices to avoid direct engagement with the messy, challenging aspects of ordinary life. By placing truth on a distant mountain, we create a convenient excuse not to find it in our everyday circumstances. Postponement. A culturally reinforced habit. The belief that fulfillment is always in the future, after we achieve something, acquire something, or become something. This habit prevents us from recognizing the completeness available in the present moment. The Japanese concept of shikantaza, just sitting, embodies the spirit of the master's teaching. This practice involves sitting without any goal or object of focus, neither seeking special experiences nor rejecting ordinary ones. It is a radical affirmation that this moment, exactly as it is, contains everything needed for awakening. Closing reflection from Moonmind Temple. Zen Master Doran wrote, "If you cannot find the truth right where you are, where else do you expect to find it?" This teaching challenges our deep-seated assumption that truth, peace, or enlightenment exists somewhere other than here, in a time other than now, or in an experience other than this. Like Lee climbing the sacred mountain, we exhaust ourselves seeking elsewhere what has never been absent. The Buddha said, It is in the nature of things that joy arises in a person free from remorse. This points to the natural emergence of well-being when we stop creating division between where we are and where we think we should be. The cessation of seeking does not leave emptiness. It reveals the fullness that seeking obscures in your own life. Notice when you fall into the pattern of believing that what you seek is elsewhere. Perhaps you think peace will come after you resolve a particular problem, or that connection will feel more genuine with different people, or that life will finally be complete when certain conditions are met. Each of these beliefs subtly rejects the present moment, overlooking the sacred mountain where you already stand. Tonight, as we complete our journey through these stories, can you recognize that the peace you seek through listening is not separate from your present awareness? Can you feel how the wisdom in these tales is not distant, but immediately available in your direct experience? As the Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The ultimate truth is not hidden on a sacred mountain or locked away in ancient texts. It lives here in the miracle of ordinary awareness, the silent witness that has accompanied us throughout our entire journey together. As we draw our time to a close, let us reflect on the path we have traveled through these ancient stories of wisdom. Each tale offers a unique facet of understanding, yet all point to the same essential truth. Peace, clarity, and awakening are available here and now, not in some distant future or special circumstance. The empty boat taught us to recognize when we fill situations with assumed intentions. The monk and the tiger showed us how to find joy in the present moment despite challenges. The two arrows revealed how to avoid adding suffering to inevitable pain. The mustard seed taught that loss and change touch everyone. The farmer and his horse showed why we shouldn't rush to label things as good or bad. The Buddha and the angry man revealed we always have a choice to take in others' bitterness or let it pass. The monk with the overflowing teacup proved that accepting life's fleeting nature helps us cherish each moment. The Buddha's robe lesson reminded us that real giving expects nothing in return. The two monks at the river reminded us not to cling to old burdens after crossing troubled waters. The cricket in the quiet temple helped us appreciate how stillness lets us hear life's quiet whispers. The laughing man and the king showed that joy lives in fully embracing what's here, not chasing more. The Zen master's kindness to the thief transformed darkness with unexpected light. The master archer's focus revealed how wholehearted attention breeds excellence. The heavy stone taught us to rethink problems when old solutions fail. The empty cup warned against letting fixed ideas block new understanding. The farmer's calm response to storms modeled steady wisdom amid life's ups and downs. The Zen master's tea pouring showed we must empty our minds of opinions to receive truth. The samurai at the gate proved that heaven and hell are states we create ourselves. Rion and the moon reminded us that life's greatest gifts surround us if we only look. The right boat story urged choosing paths that fit our unique journey. The sound of one hand revealed the gap between book knowledge and lived wisdom. The sacred mountain taught that what we seek in spiritual practice was never missing from our daily lives. As the Buddha said, 3 things can't stay hidden: the sun, the moon, and truth. May these stories stay with you, not as memories but as doorways to living more awake, kind, and wise. Thank you for walking this path with Moonmind Temple. May you sleep deeply and wake renewed, carrying these timeless lessons into tomorrow's light, finding security in impermanence. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, consider this: what are the teacups in your life? Those things you hold tightly with anxiety, fearing they might break. Can you experiment with seeing them through the eyes of a monk, acknowledging their impermanence not as something to dread, but as a truth that enhances their value? As the Buddha once said, the trouble is, you think you have time. Recognizing that all things change doesn't make life less beautiful, it makes it more precious. This awareness invites us to fully appreciate what we have here and now, before it inevitably changes. Now let's explore a story that illuminates the true meaning of generosity and compassion. The Buddha and the robe. In ancient India, during the Buddha's travels to share his teachings, many were moved by his wisdom. Some even left their homes to become his disciples. One day, while staying in a small village, the Buddha was visited by a wealthy merchant who had heard of his presence. Deeply touched by the Buddha's teachings, the merchant wished to show his gratitude. He brought with him a luxurious robe, finely woven silk, adorned with intricate patterns, and offered it to the Buddha with great respect. "Lord Buddha," the merchant said, bowing, "please accept this robe as a sign of my deep appreciation." The Buddha looked at the robe, then gently at the merchant, with a warm smile. He sensed the sincerity in the offering, but remained true to his way of life. Simple, detached from luxury. His needs were few, and he taught his followers to embrace simplicity. "Thank you for your generous offer," the Buddha said kindly, "but I cannot accept this robe. It is far too elaborate for a humble monk. I am content with the one I already wear." The merchant was surprised. "But Lord Buddha, I offer it out of reverence. You deserve the finest I can give." The Buddha, still smiling, replied, "If you truly wish to honor me, there is another way. Offer this robe to someone in genuine need, someone who lacks even the basics to stay warm. That would bring far greater merit and joy." The merchant paused, then slowly nodded, understanding. The true essence of giving, he realized, was not in offering extravagance to those who already have enough, but in alleviating the suffering of those who have nothing. He left and soon found a poor man in the village, shivering in rags. The merchant gave him the robe. The man's face lit up with gratitude and relief. The next day the merchant returned and shared what he had done. The Buddha nodded with approval. "You have done well," he said. "True generosity is found not in giving to those who expect or do not need, but in aiding those in true need. In doing so, you have spread joy and compassion." The merchant bowed deeply, moved by a warmth he hadn't felt before. He realized that the Buddha's lesson wasn't about the act of giving a gift. It was about the deeper understanding of compassion, intentional generosity, and the joy of serving others. The wisdom in the refusal. Why did the Buddha refuse the luxurious robe? Zen Buddhism reveals several layers of wisdom behind his decision. First, he embodied the principle of knowing what is enough. Left unchecked, desire only grows. By being content with what he had, the Buddha demonstrated freedom from the endless cycle of wanting more. Second, he highlighted that true generosity is not about social recognition but about real need. By guiding the gift toward someone truly suffering, he showed that compassion should be rooted in wisdom, not status or tradition. Third, the Buddha understood the merchant's deeper intent. The merchant sought to show reverence and gain spiritual merit. The Buddha showed him a more meaningful path, to relieve someone's suffering directly, rather than add luxury to a life already fulfilled. Reconsidering generosity. In today's consumer-driven world, we often equate giving with expensive gifts. To those who already have plenty, we measure generosity by cost rather than by impact. The Buddha invites us to rethink this. He once said, "If you knew what I know about the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some way." True generosity, then, transforms not just the receiver but the giver. It loosens our grip on self-centeredness and deepens our sense of connection to others. Our well-being is inseparably tied to the well-being of others. Zen practice encourages cultivating dana-paramita, the perfection of giving. This doesn't only mean offering material goods. It includes giving your time, your attention, your presence. Sometimes the most valuable gift is simply being fully present for someone, listening with openness and without distraction. This story also underscores the importance of discernment. The Buddha didn't suggest that the merchant keep the robe or sell it for personal gain. Instead, he guided him to use it in a way that genuinely benefited another. The discernment in true giving. True generosity requires discernment, the ability to look deeply at a situation instead of following habitual or socially accepted patterns of giving that may not truly address suffering. The Buddha taught, the greatest gift is the act of giving itself. This emphasizes the internal transformation that occurs when we give from a place of genuine compassion rather than from duty, social expectation, or a desire to please the ego. When our giving flows from the heart, we experience moditaya sympathetic joy in the happiness and relief of others. Tonight, as you reflect on your own acts of generosity, ask yourself, do they reflect the spirit of the Buddha's teaching in this story? Are there ways you can better direct your resources, whether material, emotional, or attentional, toward those who truly need them? Notice the emotional difference between giving from obligation and giving from compassion. As the Buddha said, if beings knew as I know the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness overcome their minds. A Zen story. The Two Monks and the River. Let us now turn to a lesser-known Zen story that reveals profound insight into managing our thoughts and attachments. Two monks, an elder and a younger, were traveling together on a long journey, moving through forests, over mountains and across valleys. They walked mostly in silence, focused on mindfulness, with each step and each breath. As they approached a river swollen from recent rains, they encountered a young woman dressed in fine silks. She stood at the riverbank, clearly distressed. The current was strong, and she feared her clothes would be ruined or that she might be swept away. Seeing the monks, she called out, "Please, kind sirs, could you help me cross the river? I must get to the other side, but I'm afraid." Without hesitation, the elder monk stepped forward. He gently lifted the woman in his arms, carried her across the river, and set her down safely on the far bank. She bowed gratefully and continued on her way. The two monks resumed their journey in silence, but the younger monk grew increasingly uneasy. His brow was furrowed, and he kept glancing at the elder with a mix of confusion and disapproval. Several hours passed before the younger monk finally spoke, unable to hold back. "Master," he said, "as monks, we've taken vows not to touch women. How could you carry her?" The elder monk smiled gently and replied, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The younger monk was struck silent. In that moment, he realized his teacher had responded compassionately and let the moment go. Meanwhile, he himself had been carrying the incident in his mind, clinging to judgment and mental turmoil. Freedom from mental burdens. The Buddha taught, what we think, we become. The story of the two monks highlights a simple yet powerful truth. Often the weight of our thoughts is heavier than any physical burden. While the elder monk responded with compassion and moved on, the younger monk remained mentally entangled, replaying and analyzing the moment again and again. Why do we, like him, so often carry what no longer serves? Zen Buddhism points to several causes. Attachment to rules over principles. The younger monk was fixated on the literal interpretation of a monastic rule, missing its deeper intention to live with integrity and compassion. His rigid view blinded him to the elder's act of kindness, mental proliferation and judgment. One thought lead to another, creating an internal narrative that clouds our present experience. The younger monk's mind spun a web of criticism and confusion, resulting in self-made suffering. Inability to distinguish reflection from rumination. While thoughtful reflection can guide growth, obsessive mental loops only disturb our peace. The elder monk acted wisely and compassionately, then returned fully to the present. The younger monk stayed stuck in the past. In our own lives, we carry similar invisible burdens, arguments we keep rehashing, mistakes we replay, or worries about a future that may never arrive. These are like carrying someone across a river and never putting them down. The Buddha advised, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, crossing to the farther shore of existence with a mind released from everything. Do not take up residence in birth and this profound teaching points us toward liberation, the freedom that comes when we release mental fixations and rest in the simplicity of now. Practicing the art of letting go. Zen offers practical tools to help us release these mental weights. Mindfulness meditation helps us notice when we're holding on to unnecessary thoughts and gently guides us to let them go. A simple practice like mentally labeling our thoughts, thinking, reminds us that these are just constructs, not reality. Anchoring ourselves in physical sensations, the feeling of our breath, the ground beneath our feet, helps us return to the present when the mind tries to drift into past regrets or future fears. The elder monk in the story exemplifies mushin, a state of no mind. This isn't the absence of thought, but a freedom from clinging to thoughts. It's the ability to respond to life with clarity, compassion, and ease, and then to release, without attachment, letting go and returning to peace. The elder monk in the earlier story demonstrated a profound state of presence. He could think clearly when needed, act compassionately when called for, and then return to the peaceful stillness of the present moment. This state is not exclusive to Zen masters. It is available to all of us when we learn to set down what no longer needs to be carried. Tonight, as thoughts arise about the day behind you or the day ahead, ask yourself, are you mentally holding on to someone or something unnecessarily? Can you feel the relief and lightness that comes from gently releasing these mental burdens? Remember the Buddha's words, nothing is worth clinging to. In that release lies true peace. The empty cup, a lesson in receptivity. Let us now turn to another story, one that reveals how we often create obstacles in our own minds. This is the story of the empty cup. A respected university professor once visited a Zen master, eager to understand Zen teachings. He had spent decades studying philosophy and world religions, and had written several books on comparative spirituality. Though proud of his vast knowledge, he remained curious about what made Zen unique. Upon arriving at the master's humble home, the professor was warmly welcomed and invited to sit. "I've come to learn about Zen," he said. "I'd like to know what teachings you can offer that differ from the many philosophies I've already studied." The master nodded and replied, "Let us have tea first, then we can talk about Zen." The professor agreed, expecting that after a brief ceremony a serious philosophical discussion would follow. The master carefully prepared the tea, his every movement deliberate and mindful. When it was ready, he placed a cup before the professor and began to pour. The tea rose to the brim, but the master continued pouring. Soon it overflowed, spilling onto the table, the professor's clothes, and the floor. "Stop," the professor exclaimed. "The cup is full. No more will go in." The Zen master calmly stopped pouring and looked at the professor. "Like this cup," he said, "you are full of your own opinions, theories, and assumptions. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The professor was stunned into silence. In that moment, he realized that his accumulated knowledge, once a point of pride, had become a barrier. His cup was so full that there was no space for anything new to enter. With this humbling insight, he bowed to the master, ready to truly begin learning. The beginner's mind. The Buddha said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind there are few." This teaching highlights the value of Shoshin, beginner's mind, when we meet each moment with openness and curiosity, free of fixed beliefs. We remain receptive to fresh insights. But when we think we already know, we close ourselves off from learning. Why do we so often fill our cups to the brim? Zen Buddhism identifies several common tendencies. The ego's need for certainty. We crave the illusion of control in an uncertain world. Clinging to opinions and beliefs gives us a sense of stability, even if it narrows our perspective. Attachment to identity. We often define ourselves by what we know, our experiences, viewpoints, and intellectual accomplishments. Emptying the cup can feel threatening because it challenges our sense of self. If I let go of what I know, who am I? The comparing mind. In academia, careers, or social settings, knowledge often equates to status. Constantly measuring ourselves against others reinforces the need to appear competent or superior. For the professor, his reputation depended on knowing, making humility all the more difficult. Seeing through a full cup. A full cup doesn't just block new learning. It distorts our perception. When our minds are crowded with preconceptions, we don't experience life as it is. Instead, we project our expectations onto reality, missing the moment's richness. Zen practice offers practical ways to empty the cup. Meditation teaches us to notice how quickly we label, judge, and categorize. As we observe these habits, we create space between awareness and thought. Between reality and our filters, we learn to meet each moment directly with less mental baggage. The Buddha said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." When our thoughts are rigid and fixed, the world becomes small and predictable. When we empty our cups, the world reveals its boundless wonder. Practicing with an empty cup. In daily life, there are many moments when we approach with a cup already full. Perhaps in conversation, we prepare our response before the other person finishes speaking, or we rush through familiar routines on autopilot, missing their subtle beauty, or we believe we already know someone so well that we leave no room for them to surprise us. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, try emptying your cup. Let go of what you think you know about relaxation, sleep, or even these stories. Can you listen with fresh ears, as if hearing these teachings for the first time? Feel the spaciousness that emerges when you release the need to evaluate, analyze, or judge. The Buddha taught, empty your boat of water. It will go lightly and swiftly. Likewise, when we empty our minds of preconceptions, we move through life with greater lightness, clarity, and joy. Next, wisdom from the dirty road. Now let us explore a final story, one that reveals how wisdom can emerge from unexpected places. It is the story of the Zen master and the dirty road, the mud circle finding wisdom in the ordinary. The Zen master and his disciples were walking along a country road, their path made difficult by the rains that had turned it to thick, clinging mud. As they journeyed in mindful silence, they came upon a majestic temple perched on a nearby hill. Its golden roofs glimmered in the light, and the entrance was adorned with intricate carvings and graceful statues. Delicate gardens surrounded the temple, carefully tended and serene. Inside, they observed priests moving with reverence and precision. Dressed in immaculate robes, they chanted in haunting harmony and performed rituals with exacting grace. The disciples stood in awe, moved by the beauty and dedication they witnessed. Later, outside the temple, one of the disciples turned to the master. "Master," he asked, "what do you think of this temple and its practices? Is this the path to enlightenment?" The Zen master offered no immediate reply. Instead, he silently turned back down the hill, leading his disciples away from the splendor. They followed him, unsure of his intent. Back on the muddy road, he came to a particularly dirty patch, bent down and drew a circle in the mud with his finger. "The truth can be found here as well," he said. At first, the disciples were puzzled, but slowly, understanding dawned. The master was showing them that enlightenment does not dwell only in golden temples, elaborate rituals, or moments of perfection. It is equally present in the mud, the messy, uncomfortable, often avoided aspects of everyday life. The Buddha taught, if you cannot find the truth right where you are, where else do you expect to find it? This is the heart of the master's teaching in the mud circle. It invites us to reconsider our tendency to seek spiritual insight only in ideal settings, on retreat, in silence, in beauty. We overlook the sacred potential of the ordinary, the difficult, the overlooked. Spiritual materialism in the search for higher ground. Why do we struggle to find wisdom in the everyday? Zen points to a subtle trap. Spiritual materialism, the tendency to turn spirituality into a form of acquisition. We search for special experiences, exotic teachings, or elevated states, believing that enlightenment lies in accumulating more knowledge, more rituals, more credentials. But the mud tells another story. It represents what we typically avoid: uncomfortable emotions, tedious chores, strained relationships, physical discomfort, the unscripted and imperfect moments that make up the fabric of real life. We imagine spiritual growth means rising above these muddy realities, when in fact They contain the very wisdom we seek. In Japanese aesthetics, there is a concept called wabi-sabi, the appreciation of imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. The mud circle is a perfect expression of this. It suggests that the sacred is not found in the absence of mess, but in our willingness to meet it fully. The crack in a teacup, the weeds in a garden, the wrinkle in a smile. Each holds its own quiet truth, waiting to be seen. Zen master Dogen echoed the Buddha when he wrote, "If you cannot find the truth where you are, where do you expect to find it?" All our rituals, scriptures, and temples are tools, fingers pointing at the moon. But the moon itself is not out there. It's in the breath we take while doing the laundry, the stillness in a moment of pain, the clarity that comes when we stop resisting the mud and simply be with it. Living the teaching of the mud circle. How can we apply this teaching in daily life? It begins with a shift in attention. Instead of seeing daily challenges as interruptions to spiritual practice, we begin to see them as the practice. The sound of traffic, the disagreement with a friend, feeling tired, doing the dishes, standing in line. These are all invitations to wake up. The Buddha said, "My teaching is not a philosophy. It is the result of direct experience." This means wisdom isn't something we read or memorize. It's something we touch, with our feet on the earth, with our hands in the mud, with our hearts open to this moment, just as it is. Observing temple rituals from a distance may inspire, but it's the mud on our own path that transforms us. Reflection for the evening. Tonight, as you rest, consider the mud circles in your own life, the messy, ordinary, or uncomfortable aspects you often try to avoid or fix. Can you meet them with the same reverence you might give a sacred text, or the awe you feel watching a sunset? Can you bring gentle, curious attention to what you usually dismiss or resist? Let the mud teach you. Let it show you that the truth is not elsewhere. It is right here, beneath your feet, under your hands, within this breath. As the Zen master taught with a simple gesture in the mud, the truth can be found here as well. The master archer, the wisdom of undivided presence. In ancient China, there lived a master archer, renowned across the land for his extraordinary skill. His arrows never missed their mark. So precise was his aim, so graceful his form, that even the emperor honored him with riches and titles. One day, a young archer traveled a great distance to meet the elder. Eager to achieve the same level of mastery, he bowed deeply and asked, "Master, I have trained for many years and gained some skill, but I wish to reach the highest level, as you have. What is the secret to never missing?" The master regarded him for a long moment, then said, "Meet me at dawn tomorrow on the mountain. Bring your bow and arrows." At sunrise, the student arrived, expecting a formal lesson. Instead, the master led him to the edge of a towering cliff, where the earth dropped away into a deep, mist-filled chasm below. There were no targets in sight, only the vast openness of the sky. Without a word, the master stepped to the edge, calm and poised. He drew his bow, took aim, and released an arrow into the distance. It soared smoothly, vanishing into the air. Then he turned to the young archer and said, "Now you." The student hesitated. As he neared the edge, the dizzying drop overwhelmed him. His heart pounded, his palms grew slick with sweat, and his hands trembled. He tried to notch an arrow, but his arms would not steady. Stepping back, he bowed his head. "Master, I cannot. My fear makes my hands unsteady. How can I hit a target when I am afraid of falling?" The master nodded gently. "And that is the secret you seek. The difference between us is not in technique or strength. It is that when I shoot, there is only the arrow, the bow, and the target. No fear, no thought of success or failure, no awareness of being watched or praised. There is not even a self who is shooting. There is only shooting." He paused, letting the silence carry the teaching deeper. You miss your mark, not because you lack skill, but because you are divided. Part of you aims, but another part fears. Another hopes for success, Another worries about failure. Another wonders who is watching. When you can shoot with your whole being, undivided, unafraid, you will find the mastery you seek. The young archer bowed, humbled. He had come seeking a technique, but was given something greater, a path to mastery not just in archery but in life. Undivided attention and the path to mastery. The Buddha taught, your work is to discover your world, and then with all your heart, give yourself to it. This teaching echoes the master archer's wisdom. True mastery arises not just from repetition or skill, but from complete, unshakable presence, from wholehearted engagement, from letting go of the self that evaluates, fears, hopes, and But why is this state so elusive? Zen Buddhism offers several insights. Self-consciousness. We often live with an inner observer, a voice constantly evaluating, comparing, and seeking validation. This egoic awareness divides us from the flow of our own actions, like a mirror, reflecting back every move. It creates tension and hesitation, attachment to outcome. When we obsess over success or fear failure, we lose contact with the present. Our minds race ahead to possible praise or criticism. This creates internal resistance that disrupts natural performance. Fear and hesitation. Like the young archer at the cliff's edge, we hesitate at the brink of challenge. Fear of falling, whether literally or metaphorically, keeps us from full commitment. We hold back to stay safe, but in doing so, we fragment ourselves. The state of no mind. In Japanese Zen, the state of full presence is called mushin, or no mind. In this state, the separation between self and action dissolves. There is no inner commentary, no fear, no desire, only the activity itself. Musicians call it becoming one with the music. Athletes know it as being in the zone. Artists describe it as being carried by the work. The Buddha taught, just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not affected by praise or blame. This steadiness is not rigidity, it is absorption. It is being so present in the moment that outside judgments no longer reach you. Zen practice cultivates this quality through zazen, or seated meditation. In meditation, we watch thoughts arise and fall without attachment. We practice returning to presence again and again, training ourselves to stay rooted in awareness, not swept away by mental chatter. Over time, this mindfulness begins to infuse our everyday activities: washing dishes, walking, working, speaking, listening, even shooting an arrow. Reflection for the evening. Tonight, consider your own archery. Where in your life do you aim while secretly fearing the fall? Where do you divide your energy, part engaged, part doubting, part seeking approval? Can you bring your whole self to the task at hand? Can you let go of outcomes, of judgment, of the self who watches? Let your presence be complete. Let there be only the arrow, the bow, and the target. When you release the need to be perfect, when you dissolve the watcher, you may find yourself hitting the mark, not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped trying and simply became the shot. The Zen master and the heavy stone, finding freedom in the obstacle. In a small mountain village, the main road was partially blocked by an enormous stone that had fallen from the cliffs above. The villagers, alarmed by the obstruction, gathered to assess the situation. Several strong men tried pushing it, straining with all their might, but it wouldn't budge. Others attempted to break it into pieces, yet the stone was so dense that their tools left only shallow scratches. A few tried digging around it to roll it away, but the earth was firm, and the stone was deeply embedded. After many days of failed attempts, the villagers sought the wisdom of a Zen master who lived in a nearby monastery. Known for his clarity and unconventional solutions, the master agreed to visit. When he arrived, a large crowd gathered to witness the answer they had been waiting for. The villagers expected the master to offer some profound technique or organize a more effective effort to remove the rock. The Zen master walked slowly around the stone, observing it with quiet attention. He circled it once, then again, and finally paused. He turned to the people and asked calmly, "Why must the stone be moved?" There was silence. The villagers glanced at one another in confusion. A man finally answered, "Because it blocks the road. It slows our carts, makes travel difficult." The master nodded. "Yes, it blocks one path, but perhaps it creates another." He then suggested they work together to clear and level the area beside the stone. Under his guidance, the villagers formed a new path that curved gently around it. With many hands, the new route was quickly made smooth and passable. In time, the once dreaded stone became a cherished feature of the village. Children climbed on it. Elders rested in its shade. Travelers came to know the village by the stone that stood proud and unmoved. Before departing, the master offered one final reflection. Some obstacles cannot be removed. The wisdom lies not in conquering them, but in moving with them, around them. What blocks your way may be guiding you to a new direction. Seeing obstacles as the Buddha taught. As the fletcher whittles and makes straight his arrows, so the master directs his straying thoughts. This teaching speaks to the power of mental redirection, not brute force, but skillful guidance. The villagers had tried everything to remove the obstacle, believing that only by eliminating the stone could they restore the road. But their thinking was limited by three common traps. Attachment to expectations. They were fixated on returning the road to how it should be. When we hold tightly to expectations, we miss the possibilities that live outside of them. Rigid thinking. Fixed. Even when their initial efforts failed, they simply tried harder rather than thinking differently. In Zen, this is known as fixed mind, a refusal to adapt when reality doesn't conform to our plan. Unquestioned assumptions. The villagers assumed the stone was the problem. But what if the real problem was their relationship to the stone? What if the obstacle wasn't something to defeat, but something to understand? Turning obstacles into teachers. This story offers a powerful lesson for our own lives. How often do we come up against something immovable, a situation, a person, a feeling, and respond only by trying to push harder, resist more, or break through it? Sometimes that force is necessary, but often the more skillful path is to pause, breathe, and ask, why must this be moved? What else might this obstacle be offering? There is creative power in stepping back. In loosening our grip on one way of seeing things, we gain access to entirely new paths that may be gentler, wiser, and more sustainable. Zen practice encourages us to work with reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This doesn't mean passivity, it means precision. It means choosing actions based on clarity, not living the teaching. Everyday practice. Just like the villagers, we all face stones in the road, those frustrating, immovable parts of life. A health condition, a difficult colleague, a dream deferred, a door that simply won't open. In such moments, ask yourself, am I clinging to one solution instead of opening to others? What if this obstacle is not in the way but the way? What might I discover if I shift my perspective? Zen does not promise to make the stone disappear, but it can show us how to dance with it, learn from it, and perhaps even let it become a part of our path. Evening reflection. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, consider the stones in your own life, those challenges you've tried again and again to remove. Rather than pushing harder, can you pause and look at them anew? Let go of the need to fix, force, or figure it out. Just observe, breathe. Be present with the shape of the stone. The path forward may not be straight, but it may still be clear. And in walking that curved path, you may find that what once felt like an obstacle has become your greatest teacher. The two monks, letting go of what no longer serves. Two Buddhist monks, Tenzin and Ikido, were traveling together down a muddy country road during the rainy season. The skies had been weeping for days, and the path before them was flooded and thick with mud. Their journey was slow, their robes already stained with earth. As they rounded a bend, they encountered a young woman in a silk kimono, standing at the edge of a wide puddle. She looked distressed, unable to cross without ruining her elegant clothing. The mud would surely soak the fine fabric. Without hesitation or a word, Tanzan walked up to her, gently lifted her in his arms, and carried her across the muddy water. He set her down on the dry path beyond. She bowed in gratitude, thanked him quietly, and continued on her way. Tanzan and Aikido resumed their journey in silence. They walked for hours. Finally, Aikido could no longer contain himself. Troubled, he turned to his companion and said, "Brother Tanzan, we monks are not supposed to go near females, especially young and beautiful ones. It is dangerous. Why did you do that?" Tanzan replied calmly, without breaking stride, "I left the girl there by the river. Are you still carrying her?" Aikido was stunned into silence. In that moment he realized he had been burdened not by the woman but by his own thoughts, clinging to judgment, rules, and mental noise, long after the moment had passed. The freedom of letting go. The Buddha taught, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, and cross over to the farther shore of existence. Tanzan's actions reveal the heart of this teaching. He responded to a need with compassion, free from fear or attachment. He acted, and then he let go. He did not linger in the mind's commentary nor allow a single event to weigh him down. Aikido, on the other hand, obeyed the rules but carried the encounter for miles, not in his hands but in his mind. He was not carrying the woman but the idea of her, the imagined consequences, the story he had created around the event. This is a form of mental clinging, one of the central causes of suffering in Buddhist thought. Zen calls this tendency papunka, the mind's habit of elaborating, proliferating, spinning thoughts into narratives that trap us in suffering. Why do we do this? Zen Buddhism identifies 3 common patterns that keep us burdened. Rumination on the past. We replay scenes, arguments, or regrets, imagining how they could have gone differently, even when no action is possible. This repetition drains our energy and ties us to what no longer exists. Attachment to rules over principles. Aikido was loyal to the form of the monastic rule, no contact with women but missed its spirit, cultivating a pure, compassionate mind. Tanzan understood that purity lies not in avoidance but in intention. Compassion guided his action, not fear of impropriety. Mental proliferation, papanka. One thought begets another, and soon we are lost in a mental jungle of shoulds, what-ifs, and judgments. What began as a moment becomes an entire story, and we suffer not from reality, but from the story we've constructed about it. Zen practice, putting down the burden. Zen training teaches us to recognize when we are carrying something we don't need. Through meditation, we learn to observe thoughts without becoming entangled in them. We develop the discernment to know which thoughts to keep and which to let pass, like clouds in the sky. Tanzan didn't carry the woman because he was present with her, with the need, with the action, and when that moment passed, he stepped into the next, without looking back. Aikido was divided, part of him walking forward, another part stuck in the past. This division is the source of much of our suffering. To live freely, we must practice, returning, again and again, to the simplicity of this moment. To let go not only of the things that happened, but of our commentary about them. Evening reflection. What are you still carrying? As you prepare for rest tonight, pause for a quiet moment of reflection. What weight are you still carrying from earlier today? Is there a conversation, mistake, or worry that loops through your mind? Are you holding on to a rule or belief that no longer serves the present moment? Ask yourself, can I put this down now? Can I leave it by the river? Let your breath guide you back to this moment. Feel the support of the bed beneath you. Allow the day to settle, like leaves drifting gently to the ground. The journey continues, but you don't need to carry it all. The cricket in the temple, hearing beyond the noise. The Buddha said, in the end, only 3 things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. This teaching invites us to ask, what are we still carrying that no longer serves us? Resentments from past wounds, Anxiety about imagined futures, harsh judgments about ourselves or others. In Japanese Zen, there is a concept called sesshin, which literally means to touch the heart-mind. During intensive meditation retreats, practitioners are given the rare space to notice the unnecessary burdens they carry and to experience the profound lightness that comes from setting them down. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, denying, or pretending something didn't matter. It means no longer allowing past events to obstruct the aliveness of the present moment. Each day, we may find ourselves replaying old conversations, worrying about mistakes, or nurturing grievances like precious heirlooms. Can you, like Tenzan in the story of the monks, meet each moment with appropriate care and then return to presence without residue? The Buddha also said, "Happiness never decreases by being shared." Likewise, our peace of mind never diminishes when we set down what no longer needs to be carried. Tonight's practice: unburden before sleep. As you prepare for sleep tonight, imagine placing each concern, judgment, or unresolved issue gently on the floor beside your bed. You're not throwing them away, just choosing not to carry them into the stillness of the night. They will still be there in the morning, if needed. But for now, give yourself permission to travel light. Let yourself feel the spaciousness that arises in their absence. Feel the bed supporting your body. Feel your breath, slow and steady. Let the simplicity of this moment be enough. Tenzan's wisdom reminds us, freedom is not found in avoiding life's muddy path, but in crossing them with grace, and then continuing on with an uncluttered heart. The cricket in the temple. In a bustling Japanese city nestled between high-rise buildings and busy streets, stood a temple, its golden roof gleaming beneath the sun. Despite the noise and chaos outside, a profound stillness lingered inside its walls. One day, a young musician visited the temple. A student of both music and meditation, he was curious about the quality of silence that seemed to live in the temple's ancient wood and golden halls. He sat quietly in a corner of the main hall, closed his eyes, and tuned his awareness to the silence. But what he found surprised him. Beneath the occasional shuffle of tourist feet, beneath the distant hum of traffic and construction, he heard something else. A faint, rhythmic sound, so soft, it was almost imperceptible. Curious, he followed the sound and found its source. A tiny cricket, nestled deep within a crack in one of the temple's old wooden pillars. Amazed, he approached an elderly monk who was sweeping the floor. "Venerable one," the musician asked, "have you noticed there's a cricket living in that pillar?" The monk smiled warmly. You've heard our little friend. He has lived here many years." "But how is it possible," the musician asked, "that such a small sound can be heard in this vast hall, with all the noise of the city?" The monk set down his broom and beckoned the musician to follow him to the temple's entrance. Reaching into his robe, he pulled out a single coin and dropped it onto the stone floor. Clink! At the sound, nearly every visitor in the crowded temple turned their heads. The monk turned to the young man. "You see, people hear what they are listening for. The coin is no louder than the cricket, but everyone notices it, because money speaks a language they've been trained to hear. The cricket sings day and night, but few ever hear it because they are not listening for such voices." He paused, then added, "Those who quiet their inner noise can hear what others miss. Not just crickets, but the whispers of wisdom that live beneath the clamor of everyday life. The teaching of inner silence. True silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of attention. The Buddha taught, he who is patient is the greatest warrior. This speaks directly to the battle we face, not with the world outside, but with the world inside. The restless chatter, the judging mind, the constant striving that keeps us from hearing the subtle music of this moment. Why is it so hard to hear the crickets in our own lives? Zen identifies 3 patterns that create this inner noise. Conditioned attention. We are trained to notice what society deems important: money, urgency, loud voices. The ordinary and subtle go unnoticed. Monkey mind. Our minds jump constantly, restless and unfocused. This agitation drowns out the stillness in which wisdom speaks. Loss of wonder. Children notice ants, cloud shapes, and the call of birds, because they have not yet learned what to ignore. As adults, we filter out too much and miss the extraordinary within the ordinary. Zen practice. Listening for the cricket. Zen practice cultivates active silence, not the suppression of thought, but the ability to receive reality without distortion. Through meditation, we learn to recognize internal noise, to pause, and to return to direct experience. We begin to hear what was always there: the breath, the wind in the trees, the rustling of leaves, the cricket singing in a quiet temple. The Buddha said, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." When we quiet the mind, we do not lose ourselves, we return to ourselves. We rediscover a listening that hears more than sound, a stillness that holds everything. Chapter: The Strawberry and the Present Moment. The Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. When our minds are noisy, fragmented, or filled with distraction, we become reflections of that noise, unsettled, reactive, and removed from the wisdom that arises in silence. In Japanese aesthetics, there's a concept called ma, the meaningful pause or empty space that gives shape to the whole. In music, it is the silence between notes that creates rhythm. In conversation, it is the attentive pause that makes understanding possible. In life itself, that is the quiet moment of receptivity that holds our most profound insights. The cricket in the temple represents the subtle voices of wisdom that whisper beneath the surface of our awareness, the intuitions we dismiss, the natural rhythms we override, the gentle warnings we ignore, the quiet beauty we overlook. When we cultivate inner silence, these voices become audible. They offer guidance and insight unavailable to the noisy mind. Night practice. Listening for crickets. As you rest tonight, listen beyond your thoughts. Notice the rhythm of your breathing. Feel the sensations in your body you typically overlook. Perhaps you'll hear the soft voice of intuition about something unresolved in your life. As the Buddha said, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. The wisdom we seek has often been speaking to us all along. We simply haven't been still enough to notice. The Zen Master and the Strawberries. A young Zen student came to his teacher with a troubled heart. "Master," he said, "I have been studying for 3 years, but my mind is still restless. When I sit in meditation, thoughts flood in. When I try to be mindful during the day, I'm distracted by regrets and worries. How can I find peace?" The master listened attentively, then simply said, "Come with me." He led the student down a narrow mountain path in silence. They walked for nearly an hour until they reached a high cliff overlooking a breathtaking valley. Below, a river wound its way through forests and fields, shimmering in the sun. The master gestured for them both to sit. Then, reaching into his robe, he pulled out 2 ripe strawberries and placed one before each of them. "Eat," he said, though confused. The student obeyed. He picked up the strawberry and took a bite. The taste was extraordinary, sweet, tart, fragrant. He had eaten strawberries before, but never like this. Something about this one felt more alive. The master watched with a knowing smile. "Tell me," he asked, "while you were eating the strawberry, where was your mind?" The student paused. It was here, he realized. I was completely absorbed in the taste of the strawberry. The master nodded. "And in that moment, were you troubled by regrets about the past, worried about the future?" "No," the student said, beginning to understand. "There was only the strawberry. This," the master said, "is the peace you seek, the practice of presence. Peace is not the absence of thought. It is not found in achieving a special state. It is found in the simple, radical act of being fully present with what is, whether it's a strawberry, a breath, a task, or even a difficult emotion. Presence dissolves the illusions of past and future. And where thought dissolves, peace naturally arises." The student frowned. "But master, it's easy to be present with a strawberry. What about with pain or conflict?" The master nodded. "An excellent question. The practice is the same, though more challenging. Whether facing a strawberry or a snake, joy or sorrow, praise or blame, presence is always available. This is the great freedom of Zen. From that day forward, the student changed how he practiced. He no longer fought to eliminate thoughts or force peace. He simply returned, again and again, to presence in each moment. To his surprise, he discovered that the peace he'd been seeking had never been far away. It had been waiting, hidden within the most ordinary experiences of his life. What keeps us from being present? The Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. This is not just poetic, it is profoundly practical. Yet we struggle to stay in the now. Why? Zen identifies several patterns that pull us away. Habitual time traveling. Our minds endlessly replay what has happened or anticipate what might occur. This swinging between memory and imagination takes us away from direct experience. The evaluation mind. We constantly judge everything as pleasant or unpleasant, desirable or not. This mental sorting creates resistance to life as it is. The search for special experience. We believe peace must arrive with fireworks or peak moments, and we overlook the profound simplicity available in ordinary moments, like tasting a strawberry. Final reflection. Each moment can be a teacher. Each breath, an entry into presence. Each act of attention, a homecoming. The strawberry is not special. Your life is. When you meet it fully, even for a moment, you are already whole. Chapter: Polishing the Mirror. In Japanese culture, there is a phrase that captures the sacredness of now. Ishigo, ishi, one time, one meeting. This expression reminds us that every moment, every breath, every encounter is utterly unique, unrepeatable. When we truly grasp this, presence becomes inevitable. We want to be here for it, fully. Zen practice trains this quality of presence both in zazen, seated meditation, and in everyday life. In zazen, we notice when the mind wanders and gently return to the simplicity of breath and posture. In daily life, activities like walking, eating, cleaning, or working become invitations to return again and again to the now. The Buddha said, the secret of health, for both mind and body, is not to mourn the past, nor to worry about the future, but to live the present moment wisely and earnestly. Presence is not merely a spiritual virtue, it is the very foundation of well-being. Night practice, strawberry presence for sleep. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, can you bring the same attentiveness as eating a perfectly ripe strawberry? Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Sense the rhythm of your breath. Notice how your muscles gradually soften. The Buddha also taught, wherever you are, be there totally. In this complete presence lies the peace that has been available all along, waiting only for your full attention to be revealed. The mirror and the dust. A young monk approached his Zen master, a trace of frustration in his voice. Master, he said, I have been practicing diligently for 7 years. I meditate every day, follow all the precepts, and study the sutras with devotion. But still, enlightenment eludes me. What am I doing wrong? The old master looked at the monk with compassion. Instead of answering, he led the monk to a storage room tucked behind the monastery. There, hidden behind scrolls and ceremonial tools, was an ancient mirror, its surface thick with dust and grime, no longer reflective. Do you see this mirror? The master asked. Yes, the monk replied, confused. Was this mirror created by the dust that now covers it? The monk shook his head. No, of course not. The mirror exists beneath the dust. The dust just obscures it. The master continued. And if someone wished to see their reflection in this mirror, what must they do? They would need to clean it, the monk answered, realization beginning to dawn. To remove the dust and polish the surface. The master handed the monk a soft cloth. Then clean this mirror. The patient path of polishing. Day after day, the monk worked on the mirror. The grime of decades did not yield easily. He experimented with water, oil, fine ash, polishing compounds. Gradually, with persistent effort and quiet care, the mirror began to shine. Weeks passed. Finally, the mirror stood gleaming, its surface once again perfectly reflective. When the master returned, he looked into the newly polished glass. "Did your effort create the mirror's ability to reflect?" he asked. "No," the monk replied. "The mirror always had that nature. My effort only removed what was obscuring it." The master smiled. "So it is with your Buddha nature. Enlightenment is not something you achieve. It is what you are. Your true nature, clear, luminous, perfectly reflective of reality, has been there all along. Your practice doesn't create it, it reveals it. Dust and clarity." The master continued. "The dust represents your attachments, aversions, and delusions, mental patterns that cloud your awareness. Meditation, precepts, study, these are the cloth. They help you polish away the obscurations." With this insight, the young monk's approach transformed. He no longer practiced to attain something. He practiced to remember and reveal what had always been there. Why does the dust accumulate? Zen Buddhism identifies several forces that obscure our natural clarity. Ignorance, avidya, not a lack of intelligence, but a fundamental misperception. We identify with the dust, our thoughts, emotions, roles, forgetting the mirror beneath. Habitual conditioning. Each thought of separation, each emotional reaction, every moment of clinging or aversion adds a layer of dust. These layers build upon one another, creating what seems like an impenetrable coating over our innate clarity. Cultural obsession with attainment. We are taught to seek, achieve, improve. But Zen points to allowing, unveiling, and be. We do not need to become someone else. We need only to remove what we are not. Final reflection. You are not the dust. You are the mirror. Your true nature is not something to be built or earned. It is already whole, already radiant, already here. Polish gently. Return patiently. Trust deeply. Each breath, each moment, each act of presence removes a little more of the dust, until the mirror reflects everything just as it is, clear, silent, and shining. Chapter. Pointing at the moon. From an early age we're taught to believe we must add something to ourselves, to be complete, more knowledge, more achievement, more improvement. But Zen turns this on its head. It teaches that we are already whole. The work is not additive, but subtractive. We are not here to become something new, but to remove what obscures what we already are. The Japanese word session, often used for intensive Zen retreats, literally means to touch the mind-heart. This touching is not about acquisition, but about direct contact with our original nature. When we touch the heart-mind directly, we recognize what has always been present beneath the layers of dust, our Buddha nature, our original face before our parents were born. Zen practice is fundamentally a process of clearing, a returning to clarity through simplicity. Meditation trains us to recognize thoughts, emotions, and sensations as they arise without being swept away. Ethical precepts help us avoid creating new dust through harmful actions. Wisdom teachings point us back to what lies beneath appearance, the mirror-like awareness that reflects all without distortion. The Buddha said, "What we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday. Our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind." This reminds us that the dust we experience, stress, fear, confusion, is not permanent. It can be gently cleared through mindful attention to our present state. In daily life, notice when your awareness becomes clouded. Stress, worry, judgment, reactivity. Rather than battling these states or being swallowed by them, can you recognize them simply as temporary dust? The Buddha taught, nothing is permanent. Everything is subject to change. Being is always becoming. This impermanence applies not only to our external circumstances, but to our inner world. Even the most persistent dust can be wiped away. Night practice, clearing the mirror. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, imagine the dust of the day, your thoughts, emotions, and experiences being gently wiped from the mirror of awareness. Feel each breath like a soft cloth, restoring your clarity. Beneath it all, your true nature remains untouched and perfectly reflective. The Buddha said, "Look within. Thou art the Buddha." This clear, luminous awareness is not something you must earn. It is already here, patiently waiting for your return. The finger and the moon. One evening, a Zen master was walking with his disciple beneath a brilliant full moon. The path glowed with silver light, the trees casting long, soft shadows. They walked in silence until the master noticed the disciple's troubled expression. "What burdens your mind?" he asked. "Master," the disciple replied, "I've been studying the sutras diligently, but the more I read, the more confused I become. One text seems to contradict another. Some emphasize discipline, others sudden awakening, some stress compassion, others wisdom. I can't unify it all into one understanding." The master paused, then extended his arm and pointed toward the luminous moon overhead. "Look," he said. The disciple looked up, seeing the radiant orb suspended in the dark sky. "Are you looking at my finger?" the master asked, "or at the moon?" "At the moon, of course," the disciple answered, puzzled. "And did you need to analyze my finger in order to see the moon?" "No, your finger simply pointed the way." The master nodded. "Exactly. The sutras, the teachings, the methods, these are all fingers pointing at the moon. They are not the moon itself. If you become too absorbed in analyzing the finger, comparing it, debating it, you may completely miss what it's pointing toward." They continued walking. After a few steps, the master added, "The teachings may appear contradictory because they meet people where they are. Each finger points from a different angle, but the moon is one, perfectly whole, perfectly clear. Direct experience versus conceptual understanding." For the first time, the disciple began to relax his mental grip. He allowed himself to simply experience the moonlight, the sound of crickets, the coolness of the night breeze. And in that moment, the true teaching revealed itself, not as something to understand, but as something to be. The Buddha said, "My teaching is like a finger pointing to the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon." This teaching is a gentle warning against the trap of over-intellectualizing the path. Why do we confuse the finger for the moon? Zen identifies several causes of this confusion. Conceptual habit. From early childhood, we're taught to understand the world through thought, labels, categories, abstractions. Over time, we mistake these mental maps for the territory itself. Cultural conditioning. Most education systems emphasize knowledge acquisition, not direct experience. This mindset carries into spiritual life, where we approach awakening as something to learn or achieve. The illusion of control. Concepts offer a sense of security. Direct experience is uncertain, fluid, and open-ended. We may cling to teachings as lifeboats, when what's truly needed is to dive into the ocean. Returning to the moonlight, spiritual teachings are invaluable, but they are only helpful if we allow them to point us back to what cannot be captured in words. The finger is not the moon. The map is not the path. The teaching is not the truth. It is the gesture toward truth. And the truth is always here, in the quiet moonlight, in your own breath, in this very moment, unfolding completely. Chapter: The Groundless. Teachings can be grasped, organized, and possessed by the mind. Direct experience, by contrast, cannot. It brings us face to face with what Zen calls the groundless ground, a vast, open presence that transcends our conceptual frameworks. The Japanese term shikantaza, meaning just sitting, captures the essence of Zen's approach. We do not sit to analyze, achieve, or acquire. We sit to allow reality to reveal itself, unfiltered, ungrasped, unowned. No commentary, no effort, just be. In this practice, we move beyond fingers pointing at the moon. We sit with the moon itself. Even teachings about non-attachment to teachings. can become more fingers, concepts mistaken for the truth. That's why Zen often employs paradox, silence, or seemingly absurd gestures to interrupt conceptual thought and point directly to experience beyond words. The master who holds up a flower, the teacher who gives a sudden shout, the stick that strikes the floor in the stillness of the Zendo. Each jolt breaks the spell of thinking and returns us to what is. The Buddha said, "If you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your own path." This reminds us, teachings exist to guide us toward light, not to become objects of attachment. When we use them as guides rather than goals, they reveal the clarity they were designed to awaken. Your own practice, moon or finger, in your own spiritual or personal journey, notice, are you focusing more on fingers than moons? Are you debating teachings more than living them? Are you collecting concepts rather than allowing them to transform you? Are you comparing path instead of walking yours with full attention? Tonight, as you prepare for rest, can you release all concepts, even those of peace, sleep, or meditation itself? Can you allow yourself to drop the teachings and simply rest in the experience they point toward? As the Buddha said, the whole path of mindfulness is this. Whatever you are doing, be aware of it. This is the moon, and that simple pointing is enough, if we look where it directs us. A story, The Farmer's Horse. In a quiet village nestled in the hills, there lived an old farmer, known for his equanimity. No matter what happened, good or bad, he always responded the same way, "We'll see." One day, his only horse ran away. It was the horse he used to plow the fields and carry goods to market. The neighbors came to console him. "What terrible luck," they said. "How will you manage without your horse?" The farmer replied, simply, "We'll see." A week later, the horse returned, bringing with it a herd of wild horses. Now the farmer had a dozen magnificent animals. The neighbors returned, this time to celebrate. "What wonderful luck. You're the richest man in the village now." The farmer replied again, "We'll see." Soon after, the farmer's only son tried to tame one of the wild horses. He was thrown violently and broke his leg. The neighbors came again. "How tragic. Now your son can't help with the harvest." The farmer, calm as ever, said, "We'll see." A few days later, the army came to the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man. The farmer's son, with his broken leg, was passed over. The neighbors wept as their sons were taken, many never to return. They came to the farmer in sorrow and awe. "Your son was spared. What incredible luck." The farmer, compassionate and quiet, said once more, "We'll see." Beyond judgment, the wisdom of not knowing. The Buddha said, "Do not judge by appearances. Find the truth behind all form." The farmer's peaceful detachment reflects a deep understanding. No event can be fully judged in isolation. Each moment's meaning is inseparable from what comes before and after. It unfolds within a vast web of causes and conditions. Why do we rush to label things good or bad? Zen points to the mind's habitual dualism, its constant categorizing, good-bad, success, failure, gain, loss. This gives us the illusion of control but obscures the fluid, interdependent nature of life. The Japanese concept of fudo mind, a mind unmoved by like or dislike, teaches us to stay open, to hold each experience not with judgment, but with spacious awareness. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh called this interbeing, the truth that nothing exists in isolation. Everything is connected to everything else. The farmer's story is interbeing in action. The horse's loss leads to gain. The gain leads to injury. The injury leads to safety. Nothing stands alone. Night practice. As you lie down tonight, reflect on the moments of your day that you labeled good, bad, success, failure. Can you soften your grip on those judgments? Can you rest in the not knowing? Inhale into the open field of your life. Exhale the urge to categorize. Let it all be as it is, part of a deeper unfolding you cannot yet see. Say quietly to yourself, "We'll see," and trust that the story is still being written, that the moon is always there, even when clouds pass over it. Chapter: The Empty Cup. The Buddha said, "If we could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our whole life would change." This teaching points to the depth hidden within simplicity. When we pause to truly perceive, without our habitual filters and judgments, we see that nothing is as ordinary as it seems. Every moment is layered with mystery, potential, and meaning, yet to unfold. Zen practice trains us in this kind of clear seeing. It asks us to stay present with life as it is, suspending the mind's rush to categorize. When something happens, the mind reflexively labels it good, bad, fortunate, unfortunate. But Zen invites us to pause and create space around these automatic reactions. This space is not passive. The farmer from our earlier story still took wise action at each stage, searching for his horse, helping his son heal, adapting to change. But he did so without the added suffering of premature judgment. The Buddha said, "As rain falls equally on the just and the unjust, do not burden your heart with judgments, but rain your kindness equally on all." Suspending judgment isn't just a mental act. It opens a wider heart, one capable of compassion toward all beings and all moments. Tonight, as you reflect on events you've labeled as fortunate or unfortunate, can you hold them more lightly? Can you meet them with the farmer's gentle wisdom? We'll see. This is equanimity, the insight that nothing is fixed, that being is always becoming. And in this awareness we find the strength to meet each moment with grace. A story: The Cup of Tea. A renowned university professor, well-versed in philosophy and religion, once visited a Zen master. He had studied Zen texts extensively, published articles, and now sought a conversation with a living master, perhaps to validate or challenge what he believed he knew. The Zen master welcomed him with warmth and offered him tea. As the master began preparing it with quiet, deliberate care, the professor launched into an eager monologue, quoting scriptures, analyzing Zen schools, comparing it with Western thought. The master said nothing. When the tea was ready, he placed a cup before the professor and began to pour. The professor barely paused, still speaking. The cup filled, but the master continued pouring. Tea spilled over the brim, across the table, and onto the professor's lap. Startled, the professor cried out, "Stop! The cup is full, no more will go in." The master set down the pot and said gently, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and ideas. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" In that moment, the professor fell silent. He realized that all his knowledge about had become a barrier to knowing Zen. He bowed deeply and said, "I see now that I know nothing. Please teach me as a beginner." The master smiled. In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. The beginner's mind. From that day forward, the professor approached Zen differently. Instead of filling his mind with more theories, he began practicing, setting aside his preconceptions, making space for direct experience. The Buddha taught, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. True wisdom often begins not with more accumulation, but with letting go. Zen asks us to see clearly the difference between information and wisdom. Why do we confuse the two? Zen identifies 3 patterns that contribute to this misunderstanding: cultural conditioning. From early on we're taught to value intellectual knowledge, facts, concepts, theory. But intuitive, embodied, or direct ways of knowing are often neglected. The ego's attachment to knowing knowledge becomes part of our identity. It helps us feel worthy, safe, and respect. Admitting we don't know, emptying our cup, can feel threatening. Vulnerability, however, is the very doorway to awakening. Our fear of emptiness. Especially in Western cultures, emptiness is seen as a lack, the void to be filled. But in Zen, emptiness, shunyata, is fertile ground, full of potential, like the empty cup, ready to receive fresh tea. The Japanese term moshin, no mind, points to this. It doesn't mean thoughtlessness. It means a mind free from clinging, open, ready, fluid, like water, like the sky, like breath. Night practice, emptying the cup. As you prepare for sleep, notice the contents of your mind. Are you replaying the day's conversations? Solving problems that don't need answers tonight? Clinging to ideas, roles, or identities? Can you practice emptying? Breathe in. Let the breath fill your cup. Breathe out. Let it spill over, washing away cluttered thoughts, worn ideas, and yesterday's truths. Trust that emptiness is not the absence of something. It is the presence of space, the womb of all insight, the silence in which wisdom speaks. Tonight, may you sleep with a beginner's heart, empty, open, whole. Chapter: The Gates of Heaven and Hell. When we're caught in concepts, we lose the freshness of direct experience. Beginner's mind, Shoshin, invites us to approach each situation with fresh eyes, as if encountering it for the very first time. Zen emphasizes a direct transmission beyond words, pointing toward an understanding that can't be contained in intellect alone. The Buddha said, "To know and not to act is not yet to know." This teaching reminds us that true wisdom transforms how we live, not just how we think. Until insight enters the body, guiding speech, action, and presence, it remains mere information, like tea never poured into the cup. In your own learning, notice when your cup may be too full. Do you enter a conversation already assuming what will be said? Do you read a book through the lens of beliefs you already hold? Do you approach a challenge with the assumption that you understand it based on past experience? These are full cup moments, barriers to growth, insight, and freedom. Tonight, as you rest in awareness, experiment with emptying your cup. Let go of what you think you know about rest, about yourself, about these teachings. Create space for direct experience to unfold. The Buddha said, "Empty your boat of water, and it will go lightly and swiftly." In the same way, when we empty our minds of fixed ideas, we move through life with greater ease, openness, and grace. A story: The Gate of Paradise. There once was a samurai warrior known across the land for his skill and honor. After years of battle and loyal service, he began to be troubled by deeper questions. What is the meaning of life? What lies beyond death? What is heaven and what is hell? Having heard of a wise Zen master living in a remote mountain temple, the samurai journeyed for many days to seek him out. At last, he arrived. The master, an elderly monk, small in stature and simple in appearance, greeted him warmly. The samurai bowed and listed his accomplishments with pride. Then he asked, "Master, I have come to inquire about heaven and hell. What can you tell me of these realms?" The master looked at him and, to the samurai's shock, burst out laughing. "You call yourself a samurai?" he scoffed. "Look at you, just a pompous fool in a costume. What lord would trust such a ridiculous figure to guard him? Run along. Don't waste my time with childish questions." The samurai's face turned crimson with rage. His pride wounded, he reached for his sword and raised it to strike the master down. At that very moment, the master looked calmly into his eyes and said softly, "That is the gate of hell." The sword froze in midair. In a flash of clarity, the samurai understood. His pride, his anger, his impulse toward violence. This was hell, not a place to which one is sent, but a state generated from within. Humbled, he slowly lowered his sword and bowed deeply. The master then said, "And that is the gate of paradise. Heaven and hell, created by the mind." In that moment, the samurai realized heaven and hell are not distant destinations. They are created by the mind in every moment, through choice, reaction, and awareness. The Buddha said, "What we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday." Our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind. We suffer not because of punishment, but because our reactions themselves are suffering. Likewise, peace is not a reward, but the natural fruit of presence and awareness. Why we create hell. Zen identifies several patterns that lead to these inner realms of torment. Reactivity. Our habitual automatic responses to triggers. The samurai shifted instantly from pride to rage. How often do we fall into suffering just as quickly? Attachment to identity. The more tightly we hold our self-image as competent, noble, respected, the more vulnerable we are to insult. When the samurai's image was threatened, he fell into hell immediately. Disconnection from awareness. In anger, the samurai forgot his higher purpose. He lost touch with his inner witness, his spiritual path. Emotion consumed his clarity. The Japanese term fudoshin, immovable mind, describes the quality of equanimity that remains steady amid external chaos or provocation. It's not suppression. It's the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by emotion, to act from awareness rather than reaction. Practice recognizing the gates. In your own life, notice the gates of hell and paradise as they open and close. A driver moves too slowly in front of you. Do you clench in irritation and blame? A loved one says something insensitive. Do you burn with resentment? A plan falls apart. Do you spiral into self-pity or judgment? Each of these is a gate, a moment where suffering can be created or wisdom awakened. Paradise, too, is close at hand. You choose patience over anger. You respond with curiosity rather than defense. You pause and breathe instead of reacting. These are not grand acts. They are subtle internal shifts. The true path of liberation. As the Buddha taught, you will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. And by the same law, you will not be rewarded for your awareness. You will be freed by it. Chapter. The Moon and the Thief. When a child makes a mistake, and you respond with compassion instead of frustration, you open the gate of paradise. These small everyday choices accumulate, creating the predominant climate of our mind. Tonight, as you transition into rest, notice if your mind begins to construct hell realms through worry, over-planning, or replaying the day's frustrations. Can you recognize these as self-created states, not objective realities? Can you gently lower your sword, as the samurai did, choosing awareness over reactivity? The Buddha taught, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. In releasing the coal, in choosing the gate of paradise over the gate of hell, we discover that freedom is always available. Just one conscious breath, one compassionate response away. The story, Ryoen's Moon. In ancient Japan, there lived a Zen monk named Ryoen, known not for wealth but for his simple life and deep. He lived alone in a tiny hut on the mountainside, owning little, needing even less, yet his face glowed with quiet joy, a contentment so radiant that even the rich envied him. One evening, a thief broke into Ryoen's hut. There was nothing of value to steal. Ryoen was seated in meditation as the intruder shuffled through his few belongings. Without turning, the monk said softly, "You have come a long way to visit me. You should not leave empty-handed. Please take my robe." The thief, startled by this kindness, took the tattered garment and fled into the night, bewildered. Ryoen sat, now naked, watching the moon rise through his window. Its silver light washed over the hills and filled his room. He sighed and whispered, "Poor fellow. I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." True wealth, the beauty already present. This story reveals a deep truth. While the thief sought treasure, Ryoen had already found it, in the moonlight, in the breath, in the freedom from grasping. The Buddha taught, Let us rise up and be thankful. If we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. If we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. If we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us all be thankful. This is Ryoen's wisdom. Joy not from gain, but from appreciation. Why we miss the moon. Why do we overlook the moonlight and chase shadows? Zen Buddhism identifies a few habitual tendencies. The belief in acquisition. We're taught to chase possessions, experiences, or achievements, believing happiness lies out there. This mindset keeps us endlessly reaching, never arriving, confusing pleasure with happiness. Pleasure comes from satisfying desire, but it fades, often leaving craving behind. True happiness is rooted in how we relate to what's already here, not what we manage to obtain. Neglecting the ordinary miracles. Like the thief, we often miss the moon while searching for gold. We scroll past beauty, ignore the breath, overlook presence. The extraordinary is hidden in the ordinary. The Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi captures Ryoen's insight, the beauty of simplicity, imperfection, and impermanence. It honors the weathered, humble, and natural, over the polished, flawless, or extravagant. Ryoen's hut lacked material wealth, but was rich in wabi-sabi, a richness seen only by an appreciative heart. Practice, seeing the moon. Zen practice helps us cultivate this appreciative seeing. Mindfulness teaches us to fully receive the present moment, walking, eating, listening, not as means to an end but as complete experiences. Meditation shows us how the mind's constant reaching prevents us from recognizing what's already here. Simplicity, in lifestyle and thought, creates space for beauty to reveal itself. The Buddha said, "Health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, and faithfulness the best relationship." Ryoen lived this truth. His wealth was in the moonlight, his generosity in the gift of presence, his joy in not needing more. Reflection. Are you missing the moon? In your own life, notice where you might be overlooking treasures. Do you scroll through social media feeling restless, while a peaceful moment goes unseen around you? Do you focus on what's missing in a relationship rather than appreciating what's already being offered? Do you postpone joy until some future goal is reached, missing today's quiet miracles? Tonight, as you rest in awareness, can you adopt Ryoen's gaze? Can you recognize the moon in your own life? The beauty, wonder, and richness that need no acquiring. As the Buddha taught, the way is not in the sky. The way is in the heart. Let us now turn to a story about finding our true path. Chapter: Choosing the Right Boat. A young seeker once traveled to a riverside monastery, drawn by the wisdom of its Zen masters. He had studied many spiritual traditions, practiced yoga, read sutras, explored rituals and esoteric teachings. But the more he learned, the more confused he became. Each path seemed to contradict the others. The variety of methods left him paralyzed with doubt. Upon arriving at the monastery, he poured his heart out to an elderly master. "Master," he said, "I have explored many paths, yet I feel no closer to truth. Each tradition claims to be the true one. How do I know which is right for me? How do I avoid wasting time or following a false teaching?" The master listened quietly, then gestured for the young man to follow him. They walked to the riverbank where several boats were moored. Fishing boats, transport vessels, sleek rowboats, elegant crafts with sails. The master asked, "Tell me, which of these is the right boat?" The seeker hesitated. "The right boat for what, master?" The old man smiled. "Exactly. Without knowing your destination, how can you choose the proper vessel? Some boats are made for fishing, others for speed, some for carrying heavy loads, others for navigating shallow waters. None is inherently right or wrong. Each serves a purpose." He continued, "So, it is with spiritual paths. The question is not which is universally true, but which path serves your particular journey. Where are you trying to go? What obstacles do you face? What is your temperament? The answers to these questions will guide your choice of vessel. The seeker protested. But surely some spiritual paths must be superior to others. Some must lead to greater truth. The master bent down, picked up a small stone, and tossed it into the river. Tell me, he said, is a fishing boat superior to a passenger ferry? Is a sailboat better than a rowboat? Each is suited to different conditions. And all of them, he said, gesturing to the water, share one essential purpose: to carry you across without sinking. So, it is with authentic spiritual teachings. Their forms may vary: ritual, meditation, surrender, inquiry. But their inner aim is the same: to free us from suffering and illusion, to awaken us to our true nature. The young man fell silent. How do I choose? He asked at last. The master replied, by knowing yourself. Observe which teachings resonate deeply, which practices bear fruit in your life, which traditions feel like coming home. Trust your direct experience over abstract arguments. And remember, the boat is not the destination. It's a vehicle to carry you across. Once you reach the other shore, you won't need to carry the boat on your back. The seeker bowed in understanding. He realized his quest was not for the universally right path, but for the path that would carry him across the waters of life. The purpose of practice. The Buddha said, I teach one thing and one thing only: suffering, and the end of suffering. This is the pragmatic heart of spiritual practice. Its value lies in its capacity to liberate. Different teachings may offer different maps, but their purpose converges on a single aim: awakening, freedom, compassion. Why we get confused. Zen Buddhism offers insights into why we struggle with spiritual choice, dualistic thinking. Our habit of sorting things into right, wrong, true, false, or superior, inferior blinds us to the possibility that multiple approaches can be valid, depending on time, temperament, and context. Attachment to form over function. We often cling to doctrine, tradition, or style, and ignore the more important question: does this practice help me suffer less and love more? The pursuit of certainty. We want guarantees before we commit. But growth requires engagement, not perfect assurance. The path is revealed through walking, not theorizing. Jiriki and Tariki, self-effort and grace. In Japanese Buddhism, there are two fundamental forces: Jiriki, self-power, the discipline of personal effort; Tariki, other power, the grace of surrendering to something beyond oneself. Rather than choosing between them, Zen teaches us to see them as complementary. Each may be needed at different times in the journey. Kill the Buddha, a famous Zen saying warns. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. This does not advocate violence. It cautions against clinging to ideas of truth. Even the Buddha must not become a fixed concept or idol. Truth is found not in allegiance to form, but in the direct realization of your own Buddha nature. As the Buddha himself taught, believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and common sense. Reflection. Choosing your boat in your own life. Notice where you may be stuck at the river's edge, waiting for the perfect boat, comparing designs, listening to debates on speed or beauty. Instead, ask, what kind of waters am I trying to cross? What burdens do I carry? Which boat feels steady beneath me? Trust your experience. No one else can row for you. And once you arrive at the far shore, release the boat with gratitude. The path was never about the boat. It was about the crossing.